Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Selectmen's meeting on Tuesday, November 25th. I'll read the agenda. 7 p.m., open our meeting with citizens' input. Topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. 7:05, Selectmen's update. 7:15, continued public hearing, Fusion 5, alleged violations, alteration of premise, improper storage of alcohol, etc. 7:35, public hearing, NPS LLC, One Direction concert. 7:45, public hearing, NPS LLC, Kenny Chesney concert. 7:55 p.m., public hearing, assessors, Hannelore Simmons and Randy Scollins for a classification hearing. At 8:40, Maya, Bill Gain, Maya Super Bowl request for fee waiver. 8:50, Bill Yukna, the Town Hall project, to approve contracts to hire Lerner, Ladd, and Bartels for architect design, and the Vertex Companies Incorporated for OPM. At 9 o'clock, the board will vote to declare the fire station in Market Street surplus properties. At 9:10, the board will discuss delaying or imposing sanctions on liquor violations for Saga Hibachi Steakhouse, Showcase Cinema Deluxe, Tavolino, Chicky Flynn's, Dimitri's Red Snapper, Lafayette House, and the Renaissance Hotel. And at 9:20, we'll have a town manager update by Bill Keegan. John, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
Pledge over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. 7 p.m. Any citizens' input at this time? Seeing none, we'll go to the Selectmen's update. Just want to start off by wishing everyone a very happy Thanksgiving and safe travels if you are traveling. Just wanted to caution everyone out there, there still seems to be a problem on South Street. I understand there was an accident earlier. Fortunately, no one was injured, so I guess the cleanup on that continues. So there is a detour through town around that. Since we're early for the public hearing, why don't we do some of the action items? Oh, I'm sorry, just a minute. Jim, did you want to mention just the veterans?
Oh, yeah, thank you to the, I'll say student athletes, because it's not just football, it seems it's grown. Last year we started, this year is the second year, to offer complimentary tickets that we purchased in turkeys for the veterans. So we had about twice as many as we had last year. It's grown, and it was nice to see the football players, volleyball players, wrestlers, boys and girls come out to pass them out on Saturday. So and thank you. I'll put something in the paper to thank the donors, but there was quite a few people that stepped up with some donations. Jenny, thank you. You were one of them. And so hopefully, it's going to grow, and the kids will take it over, and it will run by itself sooner than later. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so back to action items.
Okay, we have one action item this evening. The Council on Aging has received a grant from the National Council on Aging, and this is to provide funds for the Aging Mastery Program in regard to financial management. So I move that the Board of Selectmen authorize the acceptance of a $2,000 grant to the Foxborough Council on Aging from the National Council on Aging for the Aging Mastery Program of Financial Management, and thank the Council on Aging for pursuing this grant.
I'll second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That's it. Okay. Just go through a couple of the information items in our packet. We have another notice, Comcast Xfinity, announcing price adjustments. We have a notice from the Rentham Planning Board regarding a public hearing for a special permit concerning site plan approval application. And we have two items of information from the planning board regarding special permit applications for accessory apartments at 2 Austin Lane and 10 Revere Drive. Also wanted to mention that there's a Selectmen's meeting in Walpole on December 2nd, that Monday, no, Tuesday, where they will be having a presentation by the Mass DOT. So just wanted to let people know that there was going to be further information presented by the Mass DOT at their meeting.
We have a meeting that Tuesday?
No, our next one is the 9th.
The 9th, okay.
Yeah.
Get a night off for change.
Do you have any items, Bill, that general announcement types of items?
Just to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Okay.
It's and that tomorrow it does look a little bit messy, so be careful. I know a lot of folks are trying to get an early start in their travels, so you know, I haven't really paid too much attention to the weather today, but I heard that it looks like it could be a little bit messy starting tomorrow after 9 o'clock. So we will be open until 12:30 tomorrow, and then we will be closed after that. So in case anybody's interested in knowing that, and we'll be breaking for the holiday at that point.
Okay.
We are closed on Friday,
Okay.
as has been a long stating tradition. So if everybody buys what they want to buy and spend as much money as you can, help the economy. It's a good thing. And enjoy the holiday and the football games. Hopefully, it won't get too much snow, so the games will get in. Foxborough's playing Mansfield?
Yeah, at Mansfield.
At Mansfield this year, so.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. They've been playing on cable access, the games from the 80s, you know, the rivalry between Mansfield and Foxborough.
Really?
Makes you feel kind of old. Actually, seeing some of the seniors that fathers were playing at that
Yeah,
time.
there you go.
That's quite. And the last meeting, the Recreation Department announced that they were going to be doing something this Friday, lighting of the Common. Anyone remember the details of that?
Do you have it there?
I think it's Friday night at the
Old
Common.
folder.
Yeah,
The 29th.
I just don't remember the time. And I think I was just
I'm sorry.
saw Indy Field.
They had something in the morning and something in the evening, too.
Right.
Yeah. And I think the lights are up already. believe it or
Yes.
not,
Yeah, we get ready to light it up.
Santa Claus was going to visit. Right?
Hot
so.
chocolate.
Friday, I don't think.
Saturday?
Is it this week?
The lighting is on
I think the lighting's 5 to 6.
5 to 6,
5 to
and
6
then
on
they will be
Friday,
having
yeah.
hot chocolate and things like that.
Yep. Oh, that's right, Santa's coming.
And Friday night is, there's a movie sponsored by the J.C.'s at the Orpheum Theater.
Orpheum, yep.
It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life.
So,
That's where that movie was meant to be seen on the big screen.
yes.
Not your big screen at home.
No,
the
the big screen, the big screen, lots of popcorn. It's been a bit of a hectic day, so I'll try and fill in where I can, but I will update the board on where the communication is with the state relative to last week's meeting during my report. But I do want to get some feedback from, I've already received some feedback from board members. I know some of you weren't there at that meeting, but I want to make sure that we get all the questions, as many questions as we can to them, so they can start answering for
So
us.
just an email back is fine?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, individually to me would be great. And then I'll get that letter off right away. Suggestion was made to me today, which I think is a good one, actually, that we utilize, there's a service called Co-Urbanize, where you can actually share information about various projects that people are working on. And this would be a good one to share. In other words, you put all the information into this, and then anybody can access the website and review all the information that's up there.
Well, it's like a box.
Yeah, it's like a box. So we can, all the information that we get back, we can actually post it on that site, and anybody can enter it and pull the information off. So
So just, you actually post the PDFs
the
right on there, and
PDFs
they can
onto
download
that
and
and
print them.
let people, read them that way. we can share information. And if other information comes from other directions, they can go into that same box.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be a sharing of a location of information.
But there's no dialogue that goes on.
No, it's
People
just,
can't post stuff to it, they can just pull
they
information
can pull
off.
information off. That's to my knowledge. I'm still trying to figure out how it works, but it was good. I thought it was a good suggestion, actually.
So there'd be some central feeder, or some place to feed the information, who would determine if it was
Yes.
post-worthy?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll probably come through our office, and
Okay.
then we'll put it up there. So,
Great.
it's a good thought. I know that Dave DeLuca was stuck in traffic on 128, so I'm hoping that it won't slow things down tonight, but he said it was...
Anyone that's out there, I tell you,
It was bumper to bumper.
2.5 hours to get home from Boston today. And they
Really?
said that it's blocked from the, from Logan Airport all the way out to the Pike to like Western Mass. It's unbelievable today. And it was, I don't think it's Thanksgiving traffic, I think it's more, there was an overturn, there was
Oh, really?
accidents.
Oh,
Yeah.
here's the chief. Okay.
Okay.
Gentlemen?
I have a
So,
question.
yeah,
Does
sure.
anyone know if the Boy Scouts will be selling Christmas trees and Christmas wreaths in the parking lot of Town Hall this year?
Geez, they haven't asked.
They've done it in the
No,
past.
we
do you know?
We haven't been approached.
They inquired about us, but
Did they?
nothing's been finalized.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Bill Lilly.
Oh, okay. Because I've been waiting for them to set up.
Yeah, that's
They
interesting.
usually do it near the paint school.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, we haven't heard.
Oh, okay.
And there's a shorter period now between Thanksgiving
Mm.
and Christmas.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving being so late.
Hmm.
Okay, so it being approximately 7:15 PM, Ginny, would you read the legal notice for the continued public hearing?
Madam Chair, my clients aren't here yet. I'm
Okay.
expecting them, they were supposed to get here at 7. I'm assuming they're tied up in the traffic as well.
Okay.
Open the hearing and
I'm
continue.
willing to go forward. I can do it without them, but I know the board wanted to have the owner of the license and the manager here.
Okay,
I'll defer to the board's pleasure.
we can open the hearing and then hold off discussion for a period of time.
Actually, we're in a zone of public hearing, so we're gonna probably have to take a break.
Yeah.
Not getting anything
Well, why
from
don't we
Dave, so-
open the public hearing, then we can take a break. All right, we'll do that.
Okay.
Legal notice. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Selectmen has continued a public hearing from Tuesday, November 18, 2014, at 7:15 PM to November 25, 2014, at 7:15 PM in the Foxborough High School Media Center, 120 South Street, Foxborough, Mass., pursuant to its licensing authority in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws annotated Chapter 138, Sections 23, 64, and 67, and all amendments thereto. The purpose of the hearing will be to review and discuss information concerning alleged violations of Chapter 138 that occurred at the Angus Corporation DBA Fusion 5, 105 Washington Street, Foxborough, Mass. Falguni Janak Patel, manager. All interested parties are invited to attend.
Okay. All right, so now that we've opened the hearing, why don't we take a break for a couple of minutes and see if anyone makes their way here?
I'm going to go outdoors where a cell phone works.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Frank,
you
can
don't get
you
much reception here.
put us on hold for a couple minutes, please? Thank you, Frank. Okay. We'll get back to our continued public hearing for Fusion 5. This is regarding alleged violations, alteration of premise, improper storage of alcohol, etc. We do not have our town council present, so I'd like to ask Bill if we should...
We should still swear
Okay.
everybody in, I think. Once Bill's here.
Hi, Bill. So, Bill, without special counsel present, in terms of proceeding with this hearing, you know, where he typically swears in the people,
Yes.
what do you recommend we should
I can do that.
You can do
if
that?
you want. Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
All right.
Okay. Anybody here is going to testify tonight? Okay. All right, swear, you raise your right hand. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Chief,
Yes, ma'am.
could you come forward and present us with the information on this, or were you expecting Sergeant Noonan?
No, I don't believe Sergeant Noonan was asked to be here tonight.
Okay.
We had received word that there was a construction project going on at the America's Best Value Inn, and that it involved the area that was at one point the lounge area and bar area. I directed Sergeant Noonan to go up, take photographs, as well as to make an inspection to make sure that the operation was within the confines of Chapter 138 in terms of their license. As a result of his investigation, he took photographs and brought forward to the board, as part of our business process, the report that was filed with the board. And I believe it originally came to the attention of the town when the building commissioner was required to go and do inspections as part of the rebuilding of the lounge area into further hotel rooms. And as the photographs show, stored liquor was in a closet, and the bottles were coated with dust and other building debris from the project that was going on around it, which I believe is a violation of Chapter 138, especially where the bar itself was no longer in operation.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Mr. Casper, could you come up to the microphone and just give us information on your inspection also?
Good evening. I'll give you a little background. The applicant applied for a building permit to demolish the Fusion 5 nightclub and construct 12 new dwelling units in the motel, which we issued that permit because it showed compliance with both the building code and zoning. It was brought to my attention that the bar still existed. So I went down just to confirm that, yes, the bar was still there. And basically that was the extent of that inspection, was specific to determine whether the bar was still there. It was not in operation at the time because it was under a demolition permit. So it was not, there was no occupancy there. That's basically it as far as my involvement with that.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Bill?
Bill, did you see this as a situation where the owners would have to notify the selectmen for a change in premises? Did you observe that or give them counsel on that?
I notified Victor Patel that if the bar was still going to be left operational, that he would need to go for an alteration of premise permit. And since we didn't have a plan of that area, that he should contact his architect to draw up a plans and then apply for the alteration of the premise, and that would affect the issuance of an occupancy permit.
And how long have they been involved in renovations?
Oh, I think the demolition started early July.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's ongoing. The construction right now is just, we just did rough inspections a couple weeks ago, so it's being sheetrocked right now, but they have quite a ways to go towards occupancy. Okay.
Bill, would that alteration of premises application have to be submitted prior to asking for building permits at the same time, or what?
Not to my knowledge. I issued a permit just based on compliance with the building code and zoning. I did notify at least 2 months in advance departments that I knew needed to know that the Fusion 5 was being demolished. I did notify them that a permit would be coming forthwith. So there was knowledge that this was coming.
But Fusion 5, that area known as Fusion 5
That's-
is considered under the liquor license.
Okay, I have,
I
yeah.
mean, it's part of the lounge, right? So that would mean, if you're familiar with the rules and regulations of the town of Foxborough, and I'm sure the state, if you're doing any altering to the area that's licensed with the liquor license, that's called an alteration of premises, and you're supposed to submit an application for that so that it can be approved, because that is part of your license. So anytime the premises is changed, that actually changes your license. And was that done?
No.
How come?
We're actually about to do so, Ms. Cabola. If I could address the board, I might be able to help address the board's concerns.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Casparo?
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Can you state your name, please?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Keating. My name is Peter Clark. I'm an attorney with an office at 200 Chauncey Street in Mansfield. I represent the licensee, who is Vic Patel, and then his sister Fal is the manager of record on the license. Both of them are here this evening to be able to answer any questions that the board might have. Ladies and gentlemen, let me, I guess, start first by thanking the board for its continuance last week. I was out with some minor surgery, and so I appreciate that accommodation and the scheduling. The situation here, ladies and gentlemen, is that the Patels realized that they needed to do an alteration of license, but because they were going smaller, that they were eliminating the lounge space, they thought that they would do it when they came in, they would have to come in for an alteration, they would have to have the plan submitted, it would have to go to the ABCC for approval, but they thought that it would come when they were ready, what they expected to be later this year, later in 2014, and they are now prepared. They have the architectural plans. I have them with me tonight for the board. So it's a matter of timing, and that it wasn't an intentional disregard of the regulations of the Board of Selectmen or the laws and the rules and regulations of the ABCC. What the Patel family is doing with respect to the hotel is their existing franchise agreement expires at the end of May of 2015, and they are looking to upgrade the hotel significantly, and to get what's called in the hotel industry a new flag. Instead of it being an America's Best Value, they're talking with Best Western, Comfort Inn. They're looking to, the location of Route 1, close to the stadium, is a very popular location for hotel chains, and they're looking for a hotel chain, hotel franchise that would be, more appropriate. The problem that they've run into up until now is, until now, the hotel has had 49 rooms, and the cutoff from a practicality standpoint, based upon the franchise fees and the rules and regulations of the hotel industry, is that 50 rooms is the break even. So what they found was that, from a business model standpoint, that it made sense to take space that was, a lounge room, is part of the Fusion 5 bar, and turn that into 12 new hotel rooms. So 12 or 13? 12. So they're going to 60, they're going up to 62 rooms. And so that's going to be an expansion of hotel rooms in the community. It's going to be an upgrade of the of the premises. They're putting some significant investment into the hotel renovations. I was actually there today, and the sheetrock is done. They're painting so they're actually even a little bit further along than when the building commissioner was there back in October. So they're hoping to have those hotel rooms open just as soon as National Grid finishes the major transformer and electrical upgrades that are going to be required for the hotel. So that's just some brief background. So, going back to your question, yes, they should have come in for an alteration beforehand, according to the ABCC rules. They misunderstood those rules. They thought they could do it, concurrent with the expansion of the hotel and the timing. So for that, the Patel family is sincerely apologetic to the board, and they are ready to move forward. I actually have had the application for the alteration drafted for about a month now. I had spoken with Ms. Herman, and the suggestion was that we had to come before the board first on this matter, and then we would file the alteration. So given that this is a holiday week, I'm prepared, if the board is willing to entertain it, I'm prepared to file the application for alteration of license by next Monday at the latest. So I just want you to understand that there really is no bad will and no intention to disregard on the part of the Patel family. With respect to the issue of the liquor that was stored, it was actually in a storage closet. This project has been more comprehensive and messier than they expected. The liquor was not properly protected as it should have been, and it will be destroyed. It has to be destroyed at this point, and it has to be destroyed under the supervision of an ABCC inspector, according to their rules and regulations. So what my expectation would be is that when assuming that the board feels it appropriate to alter the license, the Patels intend to have the bar space. The ABCC inspector will have to come to inspect the premises anyway, in order to determine that the fire exits are appropriate and the bar is appropriate and everything is clean and meets with their standards. The liquor is in the same closet where it was when the officer took the photographs, and my intention would be that same ABCC inspector would be able to witness the destruction and inventory the bottles that he or she oversees at that same time. If I could approach the board, I can give you, show you plans just so that the board can see what's intended.
Thank you.
Separate.
Thank you. Thank you.
So,
God, so you have that.
so members of the board, the plan that I've just shown you is the first floor layout,
Not,
the first floor layout of the hotel and the lounge, the bar, the kitchen area, the office, the restrooms, and the red asterisks, just so you see what they are the fire exits. And so there is no change, being made to the fire exits. I have, in terms of number or location of the fire exits are the same. So really, the area that is, looking at this drawing, these are the new hotel rooms along this side, and that used to be lounge space. So there's, there's hotel rooms on the first floor and then up above another row. And so the only difference is on for the primary access is that the door has moved in. Not the fire door, but the access door to the lounge has moved inward because there's now a new corridor serving those 6 hotel rooms, and then as a result of the diminished space, the occupancy for the bar is diminished, and there's over on the right, there's inside the box is a calculation figure in terms of what's allowed by square footage, but then in reality, because of the restroom count, the maximum allowed occupancy will be 180. So the occupancy will be about half of, actually a little less than half of what it was, in terms of the bar space.
Thank you. So this will accompany your application?
This will
for
accompany
alteration of
the
premises.
alteration. As I say, Madam Chair, I just wanted to give the board some background so that, in essence, the Patel family is here to fall on their sword in terms of the timing of this, that they realize that the alteration should have been filed first. But I want the board to understand that there is no ill will and that it will be immediately filed. There is no intent, unlike some other situations in town, there's no intent of this being a pocketed license. There is every intention that the hotel is going to reopen shortly. Still is the America's Best Value, but working towards when their flag is up for renewal to be a better hotel for the Patel family and for Foxborough come in the middle of next year.
Go ahead, John.
There was a question, Sergeant Noonan pointed out that the operator, the manager on site, the person that he met with all the time was Mr. Patel, but the name on the license was not. Could you address that as to who's going to be the on-site manager and which name ought to be on the license?
I believe that Fal is the manager of record on the license. At this point, I expect that that's going to remain the same for in 2015. She has recently been out on maternity leave, and so that's one of the reasons that Vic has been spending so much time there, besides supervising the renovation himself. I'm not sure if we will be asking the board to have an assistant man. I'm not sure exactly yet what we're going to, what the final plan is going to be, but Fal will be the manager of record, and she will continue to be the primary person supervising the bar, Mr. Gray.
The reason I ask is in Sergeant Noonan's report, he said that he questioned who's the name on the license, and he said when will, is it Val?
Val,
when will
FAL.
Val be here? And I guess she was supposed to be there later that night, and Sergeant Noonan showed up later that night, and she didn't appear. And I guess he never met you, did he?
The bar wasn't open, I don't believe, when he came. I think it was
I believe they're talking about when they did, Sergeant Newton did his compliance check in November, right? Is that,
Alright.
yeah, right?
Okay.
is that when you were out on maternity leave?
Yeah.
Well, that was my first trimester, and I was very sick.
Okay.
Okay, he didn't mention that. He just said that he was asking for you,
Right,
and it
and
was promised that you would
my
appear,
plan
and you
was-
never did, so,
Right.
yeah, that's why I asked.
Okay. Again, the plan is that Fal will be the manager of record. I expect that she would be working the majority of hours, in terms of supervising the bartender. I would also add to the board that, to my knowledge, this location, has never had a violation in terms of service. So the family is very, very careful, of what goes on and who is served. And again, normally they do their best to comply with the rules, and that's why we're here tonight, and that's why we'll be filing the alteration properly.
When do you anticipate construction being completed?
You told me today, in the hotel rooms within a few weeks, right?
Well, yeah, the bar would be sometime around the first of the year.
Around the first of the year, my client informs me. So, realistically, if I submit an alteration application to you Monday, let's say, again, we're dealing with holidays, but let's say we have a hearing sometime in December. I'm not sure when in terms of your schedule with the holidays and the advertising. It then has to go to the ABCC for approval. I've seen that take 6 to 8 weeks sometimes. So this is actually going to be to the licensee's detriment, in that they're going to be ready for occupancy, I think, before the ABCC is going to have everything done.
Just to correct you, Mr. Clark,
Yeah.
the fusion was before us in 2012,
I wasn't aware of that.
and in previous years, we can only go back 3 years, but before then, there were also some appearances before the Board of Selectmen in regard to violations.
I stand corrected. I was not aware of that.
Ginny, what was the violation in 2012?
Selling to an intoxicated person, 3-day suspension.
Thank you.
All right, my client corrected me. I was not aware of that. I'm sorry.
Tim, did you have a question?
Yeah, a couple. I'm still a little confused on the on the terms that you're using for manager, active manager, or manager of record. In the correspondence that we got from Officer Noonan, Mr. Patel said it was a business decision for Mrs. Patel to have her name on it as manager. But basically, he says that he runs the operation, he makes the purchase orders, he makes the business decisions, and he maintains the staff. So if there could be some clarification when you reapply for the alteration of premises, interested in seeing who's the manager and who's just on paper and not there. And I will ask that again when it comes back in. And I understand maybe the sequencing when you're putting the plans into the building department and you plan to put them into here. But when you were asked if you notified the selectman's office of the new plans, you stated to the officer that you already notified the selectmen of these plans. Was that a misstatement, or were you confused?
Well, I was under the impression when I informed the building department, the Board of Health, and I had spoke to Sandra early in the year and told her that we were doing this. I didn't know that I was supposed to actually file paperwork and whatnot. So I was under the impression that all the parties had known.
Okay. So it sounded like you were saying it was planned all along that it was going to come after because it was a reduction, but now you're saying you weren't aware that you had to apply?
Well, I thought when we were ready to open, that's when we would have. I know Sandra told me that we needed to alter the words on the license, and I was under the assumption we were getting ready to open. That's when that's when we could have done it.
What the misunderstanding was, Mr. DeVellis, is that because it was a reduction, in the space, that again, they realized that an alteration needed to be filed. They didn't have the architectural plan, done yet. I was actually, it was only after the officer's inspection and the Patel family hiring me that I worked with the architect to make sure that that we had the proper calculations for occupancy. That they had construction drawings,
Okay,
but they
understood.
didn't have this detail that either you or the ABCC requires. So there was some confusion over timing and licensing requirements, et cetera.
Okay.
Mr. Clark, did you ask if they had applied for submit an application for alteration of premises?
They hired me, Ms. Capola, to submit the application for the alteration.
Okay.
That's what I was hired
That's
to
what
do.
you're hired to do? Okay.
And then I think just the last question is more of the board. It seems like we have a situation where we have a valid license, because the license is valid, but we have an uninhabitable, unoccupiable premises. So there's a little bit of a mixed match here. If the license remains and it cannot be used, versus a license remained and it can be used, because right now you can use your license, but it's a mess over there. So I guess it's more of a question of the board. How do we address that? Because I have not addressed that before.
I think it would come under just whenever there is like an alteration of premises. For example, when the 99 did their work, they were closed down for a period of time. They came before us, got the approval, had an estimate of when they were going to be ready, so that was the correct order.
Mhm.
So we knew about that in advance.
Well,
that
no,
it
I
was gonna-
understand that very well,
So
but now it's
this
backwards.
is backwards. So I think the outcome is still the same, that they
Yeah, I don't think
intended
they-
to be
I
a
don't think they
fully
abandoned.
operate. They're not abandoning the license.
Oh, no, I understand that, and you still own the license.
Yeah.
But if I want, but you have no premises to offer the services. So that's where we're a little bit of a gap here.
Okay.
Where the other establishments had applied.
Yes.
And there's plans and there's a process. We're kind of backwards on this.
Okay.
Just a question on, maybe Bill could answer this. When is construction going to be completed, and when is sort of a target occupancy date?
Well, again, the target occupancy date, I anticipate, hopefully being right around the end of the year. So I actually think that occupancy will be ready before the altered license will be ready. That's what I was trying to say before when I mentioned the timeline of the public hearing here and the ABC approval process. They will be ready to go before the license will be ready to go.
So the hotel would be operating without a license? It would not be a bar?
There will be
available.
no bar until the ABCC and this board approves the alteration.
And the existing inventory of liquor that was identified as being uncapped and dusty, sitting in a storage closet, is that secured?
It's in the locked storage closet, and as I mentioned to the board earlier, that will be destroyed, under ABCC under ABCC supervision.
Okay. Any other questions?
The memo that we got, our attorney isn't here right now, I guess he's stuck in traffic.
Yeah.
But in the memorandum that he gave the board, that these are the things that are supposed to be brought to our attention. And under potential state law and Foxborough rules and regulations violations, he lists change in premises as described on license without prior written approval of the local licensing authority, that's the Board of Selectmen, failure to keep premises clean and sanitary, permitting an illegality on the licensed premise by storing drinks in an unsanitary manner, failure to disclose all persons who have a direct or indirect beneficial interest in the license, and having an absentee manager, potential violations of Foxborough rules and regulations, change in the premises as described on the license without prior written approval of the local licensing authority, and naming an absentee manager on the license. So I think those are the things that we have to be considering.
With all due respect to Attorney DeLuca, and I actually had a brief conversation with him when the violation report first came out. Again, the thought process was we needed to appear before this board, we needed to address the board's concerns, and that's what we're trying to do. In terms of there being, the one thing that stood out, from what you just read from that memo is the undisclosed, ownership interest. The ownership interest is completely transparent. It's the corporation. It's DBA Fusion 5. It is a family-owned corporation. It is Fal and Vic's father. And the two of them are the stockholders of the corporation. I believe that has been, completely disclosed to the board in all prior applications and materials that have ever been submitted to the board.
Well, I don't know, that's what the attorney has listed. Unfortunately, he's not here,
Yeah.
so we can ask Attorney DeLuca
If
what
he-
prompted this to be added to the violations.
I suspect what he was, and I shouldn't speak for him, but I suspect what he was, concerned about is the question in the officer's report about, the manager being, present, and whether or not, she was the actual manager as compared to Mr. Patel. I suspect.
No, that's listed under having an absentee manager. That's a separate thing. This is the failure to disclose all persons who have a direct or indirect beneficial interest in the license.
Well, the beneficial interest in the license is the corporation. So if Mr. DeLuca still has some concerns about the stock ownership of the corporation after I've addressed the board, I'll be happy to provide. Mr. DeLuca, I'll be happy to provide the board if you want to hold this open with the shares of stock showing that the the corporation is owned by. There's no hidden interest. There's no hidden ownership. It's the stock is owned by the family. The family owns the entire hotel. The premises. So I wish Attorney DeLuca were here so that I could clarify his concern, but I want to assure the board that there are no hidden third parties. There's nobody else that has a financial interest. There are no secret investors. There are no trusts. There are nothing like that. It's a family-run business, and they continue to plan to run it as a family-run hotel with a better flag, a better franchise, come 2015.
Just a question, Bill, in terms of process here. So what I'm thinking at this point in time, because of the many questions that we have, is should we consider continuing this hearing until we can have either Attorney DeLuca or another person from his office present to, be able to address some of our questions
Sure.
from their
You can certainly
perspective.
do that. That's within your authority to do
And
that.
that gives us more time to,
It's always best advised to set a date certain if possible.
Mhm.
That's when it's going to happen, so you can at least.
Our next round of hearings is set for December 8th.
That's correct.
We have two that
9th,
evening.
December 9th.
Well,
Dave can't
9th
be-
is our regular.
Dave's
meeting.
not going to be here that night anyway. Isn't that the
Right.
night that he said?
That's right. He's actually.
He's not gonna be-
His associate is
Yeah.
coming on the 8th.
Well, is he on his way still? Is he just
He
stuck in
still is on
traffic?
his way, yes.
So let's continue
Continue
it
it.
till later on this
Okay.
evening.
Do you
Then
want
we'll
us
make
to
a decision.
wait?
If you don't mind.
Sure.
That would be
Okay.
good.
I still think we have an open issue with an active license that
Oh, yeah, yeah.
that should be addressed immediately. Sooner rather than later. Because, I mean, theoretically, they can sell alcohol in other parts of the hotel that are actually habitable.
Actually, yeah, Mr. Feldman, we can't because the license is
Well,
specific.
I don't want that to be misconstrued. So I think we need to act on that
I
license.
think I think we're saying the same thing, but rather than putting it off till the 8th or the 9th or a different meeting,
Let's see if we can
let's
hold on to it
let's kick
tonight.
it out an hour and see if he
Yeah.
shows up. And then if not, then we can
Yeah, then we can-
continue it.
Okay.
Continue discussing
Is
it.
the hotel occupied in
It
any
is.
respect? It is.
Yeah, except for the new rooms
Yeah.
that are under construction still, the rest of the rooms are being marketed and occupied, yes. But, with respect to David's comment there, Mr. Feldman's question, the license is specific to the lounge space, so there is no alcohol service, period, that is going on right now at the hotel.
All right, so can I have a motion to continue the hearing until 9:30? Or 9 o'clock?
Why don't we just say till,
Until
you wanna-
Mr. DeLuca arrives.
if it's during, just say sometime later this evening, so we're
Okay.
not stuck.
Yeah,
waiting
if
for-
it's in the same meeting,
Yeah.
you can certainly do that.
Okay.
So,
All right, I'll make a motion to continue the same hearing until sometime later in this evening's meeting.
so far,
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board.
He said he was on as well.
Okay, I'm sorry.
On the expressway.
38, 93.
Okay.
All right. So our next public hearing is for NPS LLC, the One Direction concert.
Is there a way,
Ginny, could you please read the hearing notice?
is there a way? Is there a way?
Hearing notice, the Board of Selectmen, acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 181, and Section 183A, and Chapter 136, Section 4, Town of Foxborough Revised General Bylaws, Article 5, Section 6, and also stadium rules and regulations, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, November 25th at 2014, beginning at 7:35 p.m. in the Foxborough High School Media Center to review the application submitted by NPS LLC for the One Direction concert. This event is proposed for Gillette Stadium. Application for this event is on file at the Office of Selectmen. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello.
Would you like to give us some background on the concert, please?
Sure.
Jess?
So,
Thanks.
Jess Stevenson with Gillette Stadium. The One Direction show we're requesting a license for is Saturday, September 12th. It is essentially the same show that we had 3 times this past August. It's a Live Nation show again, so Live Nation is the promoter and they'll be handling the production of this event hand in hand with Craft Entertainment and Uncle Al Productions. We are requesting a gate time of 5:30 p.m. and a primary start time of 7 p.m. As of right now, we don't anticipate any opening acts. It should just be the headline act to begin. The ticket prices start at $46.50 and they go right up to $115. We're requesting the existing stadium curfew of 11:15 p.m. So with this show, we've seen a definite drop in the demand for this act. We did 3 shows last year. Right now, it's probably right around 32,000, and we anticipate about 42,000. So while they have a very similar production setup to last year, there's no GA seating. All of the seating is reserved. They have a very extensive catwalk and a B stage that goes out to about the 50-yard line, and they'll have some pyro. So it's essentially the same setup, but we aren't anticipating as big of a crowd. With that being said, we don't plan on rolling into any additional dates. We're going to be using the same staging. We're going to be operating the parent pickup and drop-off location like we have for shows with this specific demographic. We improved it last year in that we offered 2 separate locations, one from both the north and the south, and we plan on doing that again for this show. And thankfully, this is a relatively easy event to monitor from a public safety standpoint. There were no significant issues last year across any of the 3 dates, and we anticipate that to be the same for this year.
Thank you. George, would you like to add anything? You or Mike?
No, we reviewed it, the committee reviewed it about a week and a half ago, and we didn't see any issues. One of the things, they're going to continue the taxi service where they are going to use the Putnam Way North Street entrance. And they found that the taxi service just to be successful.
It was, yeah.
So they're going to continue that where they allow taxis to come in, they can drop off, and then they sit in one of the parking lots until the end and then take out. So they're going to do that. Otherwise, the police chief, fire chief really didn't anticipate the fire's going to be at a level 5 from a standpoint of the number of people. And we thought it was innovative in the sense that they're going to continue the email blast. They have they have the email addresses of all the attendees or all the people that purchase tickets.
Yep, every account that purchased through Ticketmaster, we've cached their information, and so they get a direct communication from us with all of sort of the main event bullet points. So lot time, gate time, how to streamline your stadium entry, things to be cognizant of to sort of keep that process moving as well as possible.
And basically the board then voted unanimously that to recommend to you to approve the application, and again, as is standard, subject to the stadium management agreeing to provide the facilities, the expenditures necessary to implement a public safety plan as required by the town officials.
Jess, this is what age demographic is generally comes to this?
Skews extremely young. So last year we found that it was, for the most part, 10 to 16-year-olds, and we didn't have as many unaccompanied minors as we had prepared for. We'll certainly continue to prepare for that in the event that that's shifted, but it's interesting because we had sort of originally thought that this was very similar to a Taylor Swift demographic, and just in comparison the data from the two different events, she tends to have a much broader scope in the attendees that she draws, whereas One Direction is still very, very young, and for the most part, minors with parents.
Chief, would you like to add anything, please?
As I'm listening to the discussion about last year's show, I think it was the lowest numbers we had ever recorded. From a behavior standpoint, as Ms. Stevenson brought out, a very young crowd, tremendous amount of parental support, dealing with the children, and the only problem we had on the very first night of the show is the management of the parent pickup and having them get back out to Route 1. Matt Karski, the director of parking, made some adjustments with the state police, and the second 2 nights actually did work much better. And again, I would recommend that we try and continue the taxi program because it does take people and cabs away from the North Street neighborhoods because they have access to be on the property and pick up fares and able to have quicker turnaround times, which helps us, again, get people off the property and back towards their homes or hotels where they're staying.
Thank you. Chief Hatfield?
Keep it short.
Okay.
Man, you've gotten taller there. No, everything you've already heard. It was a very manageable event. I think it was really nice to see how many people came with their kids. So it turned out to be actually a family concert, and we're in full support.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, we've had, and Chief O'Leary addressed the concerns I was going to bring up. We have a real problem on North Street with taxis and limos idling. As a matter of fact, we had a small meeting in regard to this last week. And you're using the program for the taxi pickup and drop-off. What I'd like to see is that incorporated in all the events, not just this event, because there's a real problem on North Street, and it's taxis and limos idling, dropping off, and then waiting before. for the concerts to conclude. So if the taxi pickup and idling up at the stadium has been successful, I'd like to incorporate that in the requirements of all the concerts, just to keep North Street safer. In addition, I would like to see those signs that on North Street that says no idling or no pickup, no idling during stadium events. So I would like to, like I said, incorporate. And so if you can consider that on all your future, and I'm gonna make that requirement. I'm gonna ask for that requirement for the Kenny Chesney one also.
We've actually found that it's been a really successful program, as Chief had mentioned, so it is absolutely our intention to operate that for all of our concerts. There's a little bit of a capacity issue with our parking lots with football games. Obviously, it's just a different capacity in the facility itself, but for all of our concerts moving forward, if public safety is comfortable with it, we plan on operating that taxi service.
Yeah, the football events, that's a totally different animal, because
Yes.
these people who are used to the routine, everybody knows where they're going. There's still a lot of backup on North Street, but I think the concerts with the dropping off and with limos and taxis, that's a real problem for North Street, and I really would like to see that addressed for all future events. And then we can also deal with the problems on North Street during game days.
Mm-hmm. So we did operate the taxi service for all four of our four later shows last summer, and like I said, we are going to continue to use it moving forward.
Okay.
Anything that takes place outside the stadium, especially on North Street, is the town's responsibility, not the stadium's.
Michael, good point. I was going to bring that up, because I attended that meeting, and it's nice, this is the catalyst to discuss it, and it's kind of not related to the way that you run your operation, the craft on the inside of the stadium. What I'm seeing, and it's cyclic, and it gets better some years and it gets worse some years, but I'll be frank with you, it's the residents of that area that are pulling people in off of North Street for the money to park on their yards time and time again. So, this is directed under this application, but at some point, and I'll say it loud and clear, there's going to be an accident out there with a kid, because there's taxis out there, and everybody that wants to park on North Street or any of the side streets are pulling people in to park. And it showed up a few years ago, it got better, it's worse now, and I'm getting a lot of correspondence. And when people can't drive down North Street because it's blocked, and that's part of the program we're trying to figure out, but if it's blocked to the detriment of the people that are not parking, to the benefit of the people that are pulling people in and getting a lot of money for it, we've got to revisit it. And again, this is the catalyst for it. It's not a concert issue, and it's not necessarily a stadium issue. It's a resident issue. So for those that were on the board a few years ago, we talked about getting permits and stickers for cars, and I don't know what the solution is. But I think, and Ginny's right, we had a small meeting, and I think there's going to be a few more meetings to figure it out. It's going to require the police, the fire, the residents, the craft organization, and some common sense, because I think it's time to say zero at this point, because again, it's being taken, Bill Caspera jokes when he's driving down, he's getting waved in and he's got an emblem on the car. I'm getting waved in and I'm a selectman, and I just keep driving saying this is just asinine. I'm sorry, but it is. So again, this is a good opportunity to bring it up, and I can hope, I was actually going to put this on the agenda at the last meeting, but it got kind of there's so much other stuff going on, but I'd like for us to focus it once and for all, one way or the other on this.
Yeah, and we have plenty of lead time, because these large events are coming up, in the summer, in the good weather, so we have plenty of time to work on a plan. Yeah.
That sounds good. So we could have this as an agenda item, after the holidays, probably.
Mm.
Thanks, Jim. Any other questions or comments? Okay. We close. Any public comments? Okay. And close the hearing, please.
I move that we close the hearing on One Direction concert.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
you want a motion now?
Yes.
Okay. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the One Direction concert for September 12th, 2015 at Gillette Stadium.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is public hearing, NPS LLC Kenny Chesney concert. Jenny, would you please read that?
Hearing notice. The Board of Selectmen, acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 140, Section 181, and Section 183A, and Chapter 136, Section 4, Town of Foxborough Revised General Bylaws, Article 5, Section 6, and also Stadium Rules and Regulations, will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, November 25th, 2014, beginning at 7:45 p.m. in the Foxborough High School Media Center to review the application submitted by NPS LLC for the Kenny Chesney and Jason Alvian concerts. This event is proposed for Gillette Stadium. Application for this event is on file at the Office of Selectmen. All interested parties are welcome to attend.
Thank you.
So jumping right in.
Thank you.
Kenny Chesney and Jason Aldean with opening act Brantley Gilbert is what I'm here to request for this evening. We're asking for Friday, August 28th and Saturday, August 29th. The gate and the lot time for this event, we actually just leave to be determined, and that's because we set it a little bit closer to the date, and it's set by local public safety officials. We just listen to essentially what we're anticipating for a crowd based on where those artists are come August. The primary start time is 5 p.m., and that won't shift. What we do anticipate is having another act added to the bill, most likely a Battle of the Bands winner or a significantly smaller act. It wouldn't shift that start time, so we're asking for a 5 p.m. start time, but you may see another artist get added on a little bit closer to the date. The ticket prices range from $59.50 to $265. And we're also simply requesting the existing stadium curfew of 11:15 p.m. We're anticipating about 52,000 people for each date. And this event in the past has presented a very unique set of operational challenges from a public safety standpoint. And we certainly are aware of that. And we've worked very closely with the town to improve year in and year out and make this a better event for our patrons, a better event for the town. At this point, we really feel that we've got all of the existing infrastructure in place to address the concerns and the issues that we know will inevitably come with this event. We hold our parking lots and our gates, and we open them at public safety officials' discretion. We have a very extensive network of communication that we launch about 3 days before this event. That includes radio, public service announcements, direct email blasts to all of the concert buyers. We use our Partners in Patriotism newsletter, which was new this year, and is a direct mail piece that goes to every household in Foxborough to sort of outline what the timing is going to look like, what some anticipated challenges might be for residents in town, how to plan for potential parking or traffic issues. We have a shortened show. So 4 years ago, this show would begin at 3:30 or 4 o'clock. It's been shortened by about an hour and a half now. We don't allow printed home tickets. We do a strict ticket entry policy for just our parking lots alone. And at the chief's request, we no longer allow ticket fast or printed home for this event. So a hard copy ticket on ticket stock is required to get into the parking lots. We're going to continue with all of our public safety initiatives with respect to transporting alcohol or any beverages between lots, limiting the amount of space for tailgates to set up, making sure that they remain small gatherings and they don't reach any sort of capacity. We're going to reduce the amount of hawkers that we have and alcohol sales. We will shut it off as soon as the chiefs deem it appropriate. And we're going to continue also with our with making sure that all of our patrons are screened thoroughly as they enter the stadium. And we're using some new screening tactics right now. We used a new process on Sunday with, quite honestly, with some mixed results. But hopefully by August, when these events take place, we'll have the most thorough and the swiftest screening process in the league.
George?
Oh, thank you. I guess we met and reviewed the event. First, I just wanted to comment on Jess's point about the gates, you know, in terms of, because there had been a bit of an issue with the football games in terms of the amount of time that it took. And again, you've got 70,000 people that are trying to go through, you know, in essence, 4 gates. I will attest to the fact that I was up there last weekend, and that it was, every gate was open, and I was there the weekend before, and not that they weren't open, but it seemed longer. So I think that, you know, that was, you know, starting to, you know, be addressed and not as much of an issue. As far as the focus, we talked out, and Mr. Al Dodley is the production manager, or the sound manager, and he is well respected by Bill Caspara and the town. So from a sound perspective, don't see an issue. Just had gone through the issue that obviously the tailgating, and in particular the bus area was a focus of discussion. And I, in past concerts of this nature, I'd gone over with select women, and you know, that is something that has been focused on. I think the chief will talk about it. He's got a good plan. He's working with the state police, who coordinate that side of the lot, to have more presence, be it bicycle presence, by the state police, and to work on that area from a public safety or from a public health standpoint. They're committed to have the pump truck there again, so that, you know, there won't be any public health issues. In terms of the delayed opening, and we all live with it in the sense that you delay it, and then the town just starts to back up in certain areas of the town. I was relayed information from a resident at the corner of Route 140 and 115 after last year's concert, and have been in email contact with him. He recontacted me when the word got out that there was going to be another one, and I have coordinated or talked with the chief about that, and there is going to be a presence, an officer presence at that intersection to help to coordinate any activity that might happen there. And I guess on my last point about the email blast, I was also happy to hear, and I'm not saying that I've seen it, the benefit or witnessed it myself, because I'm not as technologically advanced, I guess, as some people, but the stadium now has an app that they put out there that assists the attendees in terms of, you know, as things are going on while inside the stadium, right down to the ability to, you know, these lavatories are freer than those lavatories. So it's and Jess, is something that I'm happy to hear. Otherwise, we recommend that to the board for your approval of the 2 concerts that you would approve, and again, it's subject to the chiefs feeling comfortable that they have the total resources that they need. I know the chief will probably talk about it. He has an extensive tested plan for the potential amount of bookings that come out of events like this, where, you know, we set up portable areas both at the public safety building as well as underneath one of the concourses, and we felt comfortable that based on that and based on the facilities and expenditures that you go forward with it.
Okay. George, just one question about the Board of Health discussion. Sure. I've received some complaints about issues, and that app sounds very interesting, but in terms of when things do get log jammed in the town, the complaints from the neighbors are that there are people relieving themselves, unfortunately, on their property. Was there any discussion about, is there a way to strategically place any porta-john units in other areas in the town itself, knowing that this happens every single year?
I brought it up, and let the chief from that perspective, but I'm not sure that, chief, because he has a better feel, but we were thinking about maybe it snows, but the supply, building supply area, but they put a fence up, so we did bring it up.
We have had different stations established by the stadium along different routes to provide porta potties to prevent random acts of
Nature.
right? Very well put. And we'll have to find other areas as well, now that Snow Supply is trying to block off their property. And by the way, we had always asked their permission. They were very helpful in allowing their property to benefit the community. Unfortunately, we didn't get as much use there as some neighborhoods could attest to. But I think it is something that we have to prepare for. And while I'm up here anyway, I want to talk about the traffic issue, because I think one of the key things for the lot opening depends on two different traffic flows. One is our lifeline, which is 140. That has to be able to keep moving. And when that comes to a dead stop, there's a ripple effect, much like I was seeing tonight because of 95 being blocked, that then blocks up Mechanic Street because people think they can get off and go down 140 and get around where the traffic jam is. Once our common is locked up, it takes a significant amount of time to free it. So we're managing the opening of the lots based not on 140, but also on streets in Walpole. They're severely impacted. I know that Walpole Chief requested we deliver a document to the stadium. I had a preliminary meeting with Dan Murphy, which I gave him the letter from Walpole, so that in a way they're our public safety partners when we have an event of this nature. But the reason that we try and hold the lots deals with underage drinking and binge drinking in general. And as George had noted in his report, I know that the captain that's more or less managing these events actually has tried bicycle people that they use for events on the Esplanade as sort of a test feature to try and utilize for concerts that come this summer, especially those that present a greater challenge than others. So I think in terms of, yes, I'm recommending it. It does take a tremendous amount of effort to have it get pulled off time and time again. And although they've changed the undercard in terms of Mr. Aldine, he also had a very active concert last year at the Xfinity Center that really tested the Mansfield Police just on his own. But we know that going in, we'll prepare our plans based on our experiences. And again, thanks to the support from the stadium and our community, it should be a great show for those that are there for the music.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
So we did get this letter we have a copy of the letter from the town of Walpole. Is this something that the town of Walpole has to negotiate with the Gillette Stadium, or is this something that is to be considered as part of the licensing?
This is something that the town of Walpole had asked of the town to consider when considering this license request.
We've included
I'm not sure
it
the history
before.
of this, but I think they've made the request in the past.
Yeah, we've
So that
included it.
particularly for this concert, they have obviously a concern that there is a large following. Both these shows sold out within minutes, actually. So there's obviously a group that's really gonna be here for this. So they're asking for assistance with respect to support for having details in Walpole as well, because obviously they get impacted just as much as we do in some cases.
But my question, is that part of the licensing, or is that just something that?
It's a request, it's simply a request.
Is a request, so it has nothing to do with, it's not anything that we can add on to the license as a condition?
We have done that in the past, added it as a condition.
Have we?
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah, we
Mr.
did.
Boynton and one
Yeah.
of the selectmen had asked us, and we,
Yeah,
as a condition.
yeah.
And the last time we had said no,
Mm.
that it wasn't gonna, because they wanted us to condition it, and I think we said no on it. And I think Dan Murphy said they were working together and there's a good relationship. But I think the board was hesitant to
Mhm.
put one of our, condition on one of our permits that is dependent on another town fulfilling something.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this
I
is
thought we
something
had
that
said
Walpole
yes,
still has
yeah.
to work out with the,
I think from those discussions, the police chief in Walpole, and it was talking about the lodge, because lodge is on one side of Route 1, and that whole relationship of how things work. I think they were comfortable that the craft organization was gonna do the right thing and work together with it, and I think we left it at that, but not making it a condition of one town on our permit.
Ed, do you remember?
Actually, we've had several discussions in the past about Walpole's participation.
Mhm.
He meets with us as we come down to the crunch time to determine more specifics about an operational plan. And I know the stadium has been supportive of giving him the resources for his community because of the impacts they feel due to traffic.
So there's never been an issue of expense to the Walpole
As
Police
far as
Department?
I'm aware of, there has not been. I
Okay.
think, given the nature of the show and how challenging it is, that I think that's why they just wanted to make sure that we were aware of it and passed Walpole's concerns along to the stadium itself.
Okay. So this letter is addressed to the town manager requesting that Gillette cover the expense of additional Walpole officers required for this event. So, I mean, this is a specific request
Right.
related to the licensing of this concert.
that's how I read it.
I'm sorry?
That's how I interpreted the, the reason it was included, and also where it was a request for Gillette to cover the expense of additional Walpole officers. But I wasn't quite sure
But it does
how
say,
how to go about that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
No,
off. But
I'm sorry.
The way I read this was that it was to notify us that this is coming up, that they wanted to notify Gillette that they were looking for assistance in this matter, that it was supposed to be, it should be part of the discussion for tonight's meeting. I'm not sure it was actually included as being part of a condition, but I think it was to notify them, and also indicate they have worked cooperatively in the past, that there hasn't been an issue,
Yeah.
and that they would hope that that same cooperation would continue on in the future.
Okay.
And we're here notifying Jess that we have it, so.
Yes.
Okay.
And to Chief O'Leary's comment, we do include the town of Walpole and their public safety officials in all of our pre-planning meetings because we do understand that their town is impacted as well. And it's worked well in the last 2 years in including the additional details that they've requested. It's not an issue, and we certainly plan to do it moving forward.
Great, thank you. Chief Hatfield?
Yeah, I think it's important that everybody knows that it is a very busy event. And I think that the men and women that work here in Foxborough and the surrounding communities have done an outstanding job in how they handle that whole event. And I think that the biggest thing is that it works for us because we plan really, really well and we get the support that we need. So we got to make sure that we continue to get the support necessary so that this event doesn't get out of control and that we are able to do our job. So we got it as a level 5. We know sometimes we might have to change based on the weather to increase certain areas, and we would hope that the stadium continues to support us when we need that type of equipment, that type of resources to make sure that this doesn't get away from us.
Great, thank you. Any other comments?
I brought up previous about the parking plan for drop-off, taxis and limos and stuff like that for all the events. Would that be included?
Yes.
I would like to see that. Does that have to be a stipulation of the license? That a plan for drop-off parking? Or is that
In
just
this
going
case,
to be?
I don't think there's
I'd
any
like to.
disagreement over, so you wouldn't have an
Nope.
issue with that.
Not at all. It's a plan.
So does that, should that be included in the license as a?
You can, that's your choice.
The specific plan we used involved only livery service in terms of taxis, not a parent drop-off where people would come back and pick up someone. That is what we used for One Direction because of the nature of the audience. I think we want the taxis to have access to get people off the grounds and back to their homes and hotels safely. But I don't think the board is intending to have a drop-off area of, let's say, just general citizens. It's limited to taxi cabs.
Well, right now, they're being dropped off at North Street, and
They're
then
being dropped off.
And it's become a problem on North Street. And then before the event is over, these taxis and limos are coming back and idling on North Street, waiting for. So what I'm asking is there a plan similar to what you have to One Direction that you could that an area around the stadium could be set aside for taxi, limo, drop-off idling?
It is. Taxi and limo service. We'll have the taxi stand in the back of our East Club parking lot, just like we had last year, and we'll have for One Direction, and we'll have for
Okay,
these.
so if you have it now and you will be ongoing,
Yeah.
we're going to need signage on North Street to say no idling, no, but also to direct these taxis and limos so they don't wind up North Street because they've done it before.
Well, during the concerts last summer, they were notified, and a contact was made with the area limo services so that people would be knowledgeable about it. And I think the result was, at the concerts last year, we didn't have the same problem with, let's say, private transit like cabs, because they had a way to get on the stadium property, pick up fares, take them back, and then be able to come back quickly. The only thing that we want to try and reduce is if people are dropping them off on Route 1, no one wants to go onto Route 1 to pick them up, if you get my drift. But I think we want to keep it just to the cab services to try and expedite the flow of people. And it would eliminate a little bit those people that would be going up and hanging out on North Street. That's the only thing I'm trying to make clear. That
What I'm trying to do is not eliminate a little bit of North Street, eliminate the taxis and the limos idling on North Street.
Right, and this
So
plan
not eliminate a little bit of it, eliminate it.
Well, because they have access, they'll go onto stadium property as they did last year. I understood your wording that you want to eliminate even private cars that are picking people up. And I don't think, we don't want to let them on the property because it's only going to cause more traffic confusion for everyone. I think we're talking about just cabs that would have access to stadium property through Putnam Pathway.
Madam Chair? There is a growing level of use of Uber right now, which more or less serves as cabs to provide drop-off service for folks to come to the stadium, or for anywhere for that matter. So that is a growing issue that we're gonna have to face. I agree that the use of the drop-off for the taxis and for the limos is great. The question is, we haven't addressed is what do we do with the general drop-offs? But I think that's generally limited primarily to the One Direction concert.
It's to younger demographics. This is strictly an adult crowd.
Right. So you wouldn't necessarily have that kind of an issue with the Chesney concert.
No.
So
The problem goes beyond North Street. It involves Meadowview, it involves Young Road, it involves Edwards,
that involves Leprolot. You'd be amazed at how many taxis and limousines are parked on those streets, and how much traffic there is on those side streets that get into North Street. And the cockamamie stories they tell the police officers to get in there. Problem's not restricted to North Street, it's the entire area. The majority of the streets down there are blocked by police blockades, including Mackenzie Drive, Hallowell, Hartwell, Beach, Hill, and the only ones that aren't blocked are Young Road and the North Street and the Beach Street. I don't know about you, but I got a couple of young grandchildren who like to play out in the front yard. They never do when it's a stadium event.
Well, I'm concerned about that whole area. What's come to my attention is North Street. You know, North Street always is the
But
main.
how do
But
they
there are
get to
other-
North Street, Ginny?
I know, but that's my concern. Idling, you know, I mean, just being disruptive of the neighborhood. You know, and putting children in danger, you know. So that's just my concern. I'd just like to see plans worked out so that we don't have those situations.
There was a town meeting 2 years ago. There was a bylaw passed that prohibited parking on North Street, which has not been enforced.
I know,
So we either enforce it or repeal it.
I know.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments, different topic? I have just one more concern that was addressed to me, and it's regarding the opening times of the parking lots for these types of events. Again, with all of the satellite parking lots, the concern is that they open all at the same time, basically regarding fair business practice. So I just wanted to let you know that there is that concern with the other parking lot owners.
Madam Chair, my understanding is that issue has attempted to be rectified because there has been a new approach of communicating to folks on when that is happening and when it's being opened.
Yes.
There was a failure of that communication at some point along the way, but now it's been improved, actually through the help of the stadium to try and help that effort. They have a massive, it was like a email or that goes out at the same time and notifies everybody at the same time as to when those lots are open now. So that process is in place, and that's recent. I mean, within the past 2-3 months at the most.
And we work with the satellite owners also leading up to the event. We do meet with them the week before. And so we are all on the same page with respect to opening times and ensuring that we all open at the same time.
Okay. Thank you. That's it? Any public input? Okay. Can we close the hearing, please?
I move that we close the hearing for the Kenny Chesney concert on August 28th, 29, 2015.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Have a motion, Jean?
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the Kenny Chesney / Jason Aldean, I guess,
Yes.
concerts for August 28th and 29, 2015 at Gillette Stadium.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks, Jess. Thank you.
Okay. The
Madam
next-
Chair, Mr. DeLuca is here.
Okay.
So he's-
Can
Anybody
we
wanna-
move forward with the assessor's hearing first? Okay. Okay, so the next public hearing will be a discussion with the assessors, Hannelore Simmons and Randy Scollins, and it's regarding the classification hearing.
The notice. Board of Selectmen of the Town of Foxborough will hold a public hearing at the Media Center at Foxborough Public High School, Foxborough, Mass. On Tuesday, November 25th, 2014, at 7:55 p.m. with the Board of Assessors, Chief Assessor, and the Finance Director to review property valuations and the total values of all properties subject to taxation in each of the 4 classes of real property as defined by law. The Board of Selectmen will vote on the adoption of a residential factor and then determine within prescribed limits calculated by the Department of Revenue What percentage of the tax burden is to be borne by each property class? The Board of Assessors, Chief Assessor, and Finance Director will provide information and data relevant to making these policy decisions, including the fiscal effect of the available alternatives. All interested persons are encouraged to attend the hearing and will have the right to provide oral and written comments or suggestions.
Thank you. Good evening.
Evening.
Would you like to start, who would like to start the introduction? Randy?
Sure. Randy Scollins, Finance Director.
Thank you.
Hunter Simons, Chief Assessor.
Mike Larissy, Board of Assessors.
Thomas Buckley, Chairman, Board of Assessors.
Thank you.
Great. Good evening, Madam Chair, Board of Selectmen. Bill? Just a brief overview of why we're here for those who are maybe uninitiated in the process, either here or at home. The purpose of the classification hearing is to review the property valuations of the property classes subject to taxation and to decide whether to maintain a split tax rate or eliminate the split or modify the split tax rate by shifting the burden between residential class, which is one class, or the business classes, which comprise three classes, hence the terminology classification hearing. The context of this is it's required as an annual touchstone along the way to having the town's tax rate set and ultimately approved by the Department of Revenue. Once the classification decision is made by this board, the last components of the detailed documentation are sent to the Department of Revenue for final review. Assuming everything is in order, we are looking to receive quick approval, potentially this week, early next week, which will allow us to mail our third and fourth quarter tax bills out on time by the end of December. So my intention was to just discuss the high points that are in the executive summary in the first 3 pages. We cover about half of that material, and then we'll turn to the Board of Assessors to make a recommendation and take questions from yourselves and the board. So starting with the first page of the executive summary, speak first to the FY fiscal 15 tax levy itself, and that's what we're in. We're in fiscal 15. The tax levy is increasing by 1.71 million, or 4.3%. And that would bring us to 41.4 million. The increase is comprised of 2.36%, or 934,000, is allowed by Proposition 2.5. It's not 2.5% because you can't increase on the excluded debt taxes. So the net is it's a 2.36% increase for us. The good news on excluded debt is that that's actually declining because we're amortizing excluded debt, and we haven't added more. So that's actually reducing how the levy is increasing by 16 basis points, or 63,000. So the total tax increase on pre-existing property is 2.2%, or 871,000. Good news is that we've had substantial new growth in taxes, in growth taxes this year from new property value added, as determined by the Chief Assessor and the Board of Assessors. That's added another 2.11% to the tax levy, or another $839,000, which is significant, almost mirroring what the Proposition 2.5 allows. We do continue to tax to the limits allowed by Proposition 2.5 for the 18th consecutive year. However, it's important to note that Foxborough has no general overrides built into the tax levy, whereas 10 out of 15 area communities that surround us do have an average additional general override capacity of 4.4 million, and we don't have that here in Foxborough, and I'm not suggesting we should. As far as property values go themselves, which is the focus here, our FY15 total taxable property value increased by just over 2.5%, or 65.5 million. Average single-family residential values, which includes condominiums, increased by just under 2%. Average commercial and industrial values increased by just about 1.25%. And over the last 10 years, the average residential values increased by a cumulative $8,600, or 2.4%. And it's actually been on a decline, if you look at it on an inflation-adjusted basis, a decline of about $49,000 or 16%. The average single-value property, including condominiums, has increased in FY15 by $7,100 to about $367,000. The average single-family property, excluding condominiums, has increased by $7,300 to about just under $380,000. Residential class of property totals just over 75.5% of all property value, which remains significantly higher than the 2010 baseline year. It's important to comment on the 2010 baseline year and why we reference that. In fiscal 2010, that was a revaluation year for starters, but it was also the year that all of the value, the new value associated with the significant Patriot Place development, the Chestnut Green development, and the new Foxborough Lodge apartment complex were all added fully to the tax rolls, and there was also a substantial addition of residential property value at that point in time as well. So we considered that, as we've stated here before, that fiscal 2010, being all that new property being added, combination of business and residential, and being at a revaluation year, was a good baseline year for the town of Foxborough in terms of the split of the burden. And at that point in time, the split of the burden was 72.8% was residential, and at this point, residential represents 75.53% of the value. So it's increased. The residential value has increased its share of the value pie, which means that the burden of tax, if there was no split tax rate, shifts more to residential. The remaining 24.47% of property values associated with commercial, industrial, and personal property classes. Over the last 5 years, as I said, residential properties increased from a low of 72.8% in fiscal 10 to the total valuation to the current 75.53 today. The shift results in a continuing trend of more of the tax burden falling on residential taxpayers than on business taxpayers, again, if there was a single tax rate. However, in fiscal 2012, the Board of Selectmen equalized this trend by splitting the tax rate at the recommendation of the Board of Assessors, which had the effect of maintaining the tax burden split of 2010. And that's a primary reason for splitting the tax rate, is to maintain a representative share of the burden. And there are many other reasons to have a split tax rate or not have a split tax rate, but the primary reason is to maintain an equal share of burden that is considered a benchmark year, and we've identified that as fiscal 2010. The tax impact to all residential taxpayers this fiscal year, resulting from this 4-year trend in value shifting away from business taxpayers, is about $1,130,000 in additional tax burden this year if the town reverted to a single tax rate. As far as the tax rate itself, assuming no split tax rate, the tax rate per thousand in assessed value will increase by 5.1%, or 77 cents to residential classes, and would decrease by 7.8%, or $1.33 for business classes of properties. That's the tax rate. So if we went back to a single tax rate, it would increase, the tax rate itself would increase by over 5% for residential and would decrease by close to 8% for business. Assuming the current split was maintained, because we currently do have a current split as voted by the board last year, the residential tax rate would increase by 26 cents to $15.25, and the business tax rate would also increase by 26 cents to $17.35. Assuming that the tax rate that maintains the benchmark split that we had in fiscal 10 and was actually voted in fiscal 12, if we had a split that mirrored that share burden, the residential tax rate would increase slightly less by 20 cents, and the business tax rate would increase by 43 cents. As far as the tax bills themselves go, again, there are multi-scenarios here, and I apologize for that, but because I want the board to be able to consider no split, and the split we have, and the split that had been targeted. That's why I'm giving you 3 different versions here. So assuming a single tax rate, the average single-family tax bill would increase over 7.2%, or $389 to $5,785. The average single-family tax, excluding condominiums, would increase the same, 7.2%, $402 to $5,985. The average commercial tax would decline by 6.66%, or over $1,700 to $24,437, again with a single tax rate. And the average industrial tax rate a bill would decline just about 8.6%, or $918 to $9,775. If you were to maintain the current split, the average single-family tax bill would increase by 3.74%, so about 3.5% less than if it were a single tax rate, or a $202 increase. The average commercial tax would increase by 2.76%, so almost a percent less than residential, or $722, and the average industrial tax would increase by just over 0.5%, or 64 basis points, or $68. Assuming the split that maintains the benchmark share of burden, the average single-family tax would increase 3.33%, or $180, and the average commercial tax would increase by 3.77%, or $986. Industrial tax would be increased by 1.62%, or $174. In fiscal 15, assuming a single tax rate, the top 12 taxpayers would comprise 15.4%, or $6.38 million of that $41.4 million tax levy. And the remaining business taxpayers would comprise another 13.4%, or just over $5.5 million of the tax levy. I present in the package some area community comparisons, because it's good to have context of where Foxborough stands in relation to our surrounding communities. And the best way to do that is to compare to in fiscal years that have been completed, and the tax rates and the bills have already been set. So that's fiscal 14, last year, not the year that we're in. So numbers I'll be speaking of here will be a comparison, last year, but it's a good proxy because we also move in at the same pace. Foxborough's FY14 total valuation of $1.63 billion of single-family property is 16% less than the FY14 average of the 15 area communities. Foxborough's total number of single-family parcels, 4,265, is also just over 16% less than the average of the 15 area communities. And for me, that's really one of the most telling factors as to why our total valuation is less than our area communities. We have fewer parcels to tax. It's really, and on the residential side, it's really just, it's that simple. And that in a nutshell captures the revenue challenge that the town of Foxborough has from my perspective. Our tax bills are proximate to our neighbors. Our home values are proximate to the surrounding communities. It's just that we have fewer parcels to tax, and we have no general overrides as the majority of our neighbors do. And 9 of the 15 area communities adopted a split tax rate structure last year, and it's been the same for the last 3 years for the area communities. So that's residential rate lower than the business rate in 9 out of the 15 area communities that surround Foxborough. There was actually 10 of the communities a couple years back. North Attleboro sort of has popped in and out of having a split rate. So shifting the FY15 tax burden from residential to business, the Board of Selectmen has this option annually to adjust to adopt a single tax rate or a split tax rate. The shifts in the residential factor can result in up to a 16.2% shift of the tax burden. That's certainly not in the range of what the Board of Assessors is prepared to recommend here to the board. As a matter of fact, I won't steal any thunder from the board, but just to put in context what you're about to hear from the board, the split that the Board of Assessors is looking to recommend tonight is one of the smallest splits, if you will, when you look at the other 9 area communities, and they're on page 14 in the packet in terms of the residential factor they use. The only one that has a more modest split of the 9 that have it would be Plainville. Every other, all the other communities have a what I'll call more aggressive split, meaning shifting more of a burden to business, than Foxborough. And with that, just to complete the presentation part of this, I want to turn it over to Chairman Buckley, who will speak about the recommendation to the board on the split tax rate.
Thank you, Randy. So after we've had a couple of meetings so far on this process, and I don't need to rehash everything Randy said, and the history of where we went back to 2012, where we recommended a split, and the Board of Selectmen agreed at that time. And I think one of the benefits of having these meetings every year is that every town is different. Randy talked about the other communities surrounding us who have it, and I go back to my mother always saying, I don't care what the neighbor kid is doing. And in reality, I don't care what the other communities are doing, because Foxborough is unique. And, the split allows the communities, when there is that disconnect between the business values and the residentials, to, adjust them to basically spread the pain across the board. And so what we did this year, again, if it's the goal of the board to ever get back to a single, and I've heard pros and cons on both of that. And what we looked at when we were looking at these analyses that Randy did is the one that we chosen would be the one that's on page 6 in your packet. And what that is that's the residential factor of 0.963876. And the reason why we looked at that one was, if you look in the far right-hand column there, you can see the average tax bill for residential will increase by 3.33%, and the commercial, 2 down from there, it'll increase by 3.77%. So they're both going up and pretty close to a same rate that allow, again, from last year's tax bill, there's an increase in both the commercial and the residential. We did not look at the single rate at this time because, as Randy said, if you did go to a single rate, you would have to shift $1.13 million onto the backs of the residential properties in the community. And I don't think we're not there yet. Unfortunately, the economy isn't as rosy as you may read in some of the national newspapers. I think residents are struggling, and businesses are struggling, but I think it is getting better. You can see a pickup in the community and the businesses, and we're hoping that things get much rosier and that we'll be able to reevaluate. Again, you'll be able to look at this every year and be able to tweak this any way you want, either up or down, closer to the single rate, or if it has to go back the other way. So, looking at the values of the businesses in the community, again, we use an income and an expense reports, and I don't know how many businesses actually participate in that. There is a fine on that.
Supposed to. And I will say that the fines for non-reporting are at a record high.
Yeah, so businesses aren't reporting their I&Es to us, so we're using, professional judgments on the values of those businesses. It's not as simple as a residential value where somebody sells your house and your neighbor sells their house. Well, that's the value basically for that neighborhood. They just set the benchmark. Whereas businesses, that does not play in that same category. So looking at the information that we received and professionally that we our consultants who advise us on the values of these businesses, that's where we are today. So that's unanimous vote of the board to use that .963876 residential split.
Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, what one driver would have to change significantly for us to get back to a single tax rate?
I think you'd have to actually see the values of the businesses increase significantly above and beyond the values.
Residential would have to stay here, the businesses would have to grow.
Because that pie,
They could both grow, but businesses would need to grow at a faster pace. Or if they both declined, businesses would have to decline at a slower rate.
Okay.
and I think what the amount of commercial that we have in the community now that we didn't have 10 years ago is driving maybe part of that, just the values that we're having. And the, it goes back to town meeting. Every time you raise your hand and say yes, well, somehow we have to raise the money for that amount of money, and now we have to figure out where we're going to get it from.
So is the lack of I&E reporting possibly affecting that?
Possibly.
We talk about that all the time. It could be. You send out the I&Es, and they send it back, and it's all confidential information that we receive, and Hannah and the staff review it all.
I do not see it.
Yeah,
So it's the board,
it's just
the
the
chief assessor.
board, the chief assessor, and that's really what's driving those values, and we just go with the goodness of the people's hearts when they send those in to us.
Well, one way to counteract that is to shift a little bit more of that factor to the businesses.
I wouldn't necessarily suggest that there should be a shift in the rate based on a lack of compliance with reporting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to be punitive. It's an important factor to understand.
Well, what we're trying to get to is real valuations.
Right. And it's hard, and that's why there is a fine. That's why the state allows the fine now, and they're not insignificant. I think they go from $250 to $500 for non-reporting.
It's $250 for commercial and $50
$50,
for residential property.
Yeah. So it's and if you have multiple properties, it's a multiple of that. So it's a value judgment that people can make, whether or not they want to go through the time and effort to prepare that or share that. Maybe they think that it becomes public information. I just want to say here, now it is not public information. It's under lock and key. The only people who see that are the Board of Assessors and Chief Assessor. I do not see that information, and nobody else in the department or the town government sees that information. So it's important that we get that. The assessors can't do their job. We don't have, full compliance.
But if I may add also, we use the cost approach and market approach to come up with commercial values. So it's not, it's a big factor to use the I&E information, but also we have to do 3 approaches to value in order to get certified from the Department of Revenue. So that's what we do.
So you validate the information that you receive?
Exactly. So, and we going by standards too, throughout the country, then regional. So we look at many, many different factors to come up with our values as well. So there are many different, little pieces come all together and they kind of equal out. So I feel very confident with our values for our commercial values, even though we might not get an income statement from everybody, but we do get quite a few. So I feel pretty confident with our values.
Yeah,
Because of the
all
other
properties,
approaches.
not just commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, all of them, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Too many questions?
Yeah, how many people are on the Board of Assessors in your group?
There's 3.
Just 3?
Yeah.
And was this a unanimous decision?
We actually discussed it, Bob Hadge had a business meeting tonight.
That's
yes.
what's missing, I couldn't remember.
Yeah, he could not make it tonight.
Okay.
But we had met last week and discussed it.
And he's on board with this
Yes.
recommendation. And it's interesting, and then the cover letters talked about maintaining the historic split. But I remember when you came in a few years ago, and you were kind of torn because you had family that was in the business and residential.
My brother's still not talking.
Yeah, it's a big thing, and I can, I can get on the soapbox and the rising tide lifts all boats
Yeah.
speech, and because I think there's some validity in that, keeping it equal and who's represented and what, who's using all the services and all that. It's a debate that we could talk for hours on. But at the time, if I recall, what happened was there was a evaluation of the properties, and at the non-split rate, the residential's values dropped, the businesses dropped even more. So if
Yeah.
you kept that split, then it would be an unfair burden. So we actually raised the split a little bit on the businesses to bring it up.
Right. That was
So,
the 2012 year,
yeah,
the first year.
2012. And then the following year, and at that time, we said, well, when the economy improves and the valuation stabilizes, we'll go back to visit that. So I think the next year we might have even cut it in half, going in that direction, or
The
close to
second
that,
year, we kept it
0.9.
the same, and then last
Oh,
year.
in 2013, Selectman Phillips has it right. It got feathered back a little bit in favor of of business. It didn't remain consistent with the benchmark that we had set. It wasn't too far away from it, but it was far enough away where it actually rose. Residential income taxes rose, I believe, on average, like 6.5%. So it was just enough. I mean, these factors are small enough where they have that sort of an impact. But then to Tom's point, in 2014, it was brought back much closer to the benchmark. And the best way for me to illustrate that is on page 14 of your presentation. You can see in the fourth to last column in red, about halfway down. You can see where I say "we are here." That was the factor that was chosen last year, and what we'd call the benchmark is the one that's just below it. The "we were here," so it was kept pretty close. It just wasn't back all the way. I think that was sort of a compromise that the board came to try to come back to the benchmark, but not pull it all the way back.
Okay, so when we were here, that's the 0.963876. And what you're recommending now is the 0.9673343?
No, we're recommending the 0.963876.
Which is where we were in 2012, reflecting the benchmark that we were at in 2010. And last year, we were slightly above that in the "we are here," or the 0.967343.
And again, the reason was because the general increase for both classes is pretty close for increase.
Yeah, I mean, there's barely a noticeable movement at all.
Right.
No. Okay.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
No, I mean, that question, what's driving, I guess it's the economy and the relative ratio between residential and commercial. I see that. I'm just wondering, are we going in the right direction? Are they starting to balance out, or are we still sort of stuck on, the split?
We're, to illustrate that best, I'd turn your attention to page 7, which is the one with the colored graph. At the far left of that page, you see fiscal 2010, the benchmark year, and if you just look at the residential, the percentage, the 72.8 in the 2010, and follow that percentage across, you can see in 2011 and 2012, it was a larger share of the pie. It's moderated a little bit in 13, but now in 14, it shot up again, and in 15, it moderated a little bit. So it seems like we're taking 2 steps backward, 1 step forward, rather than the reverse. So the split is still, fairly significant. The difference is significant. You still have a 2.73% increase in the split of value shifting to residential. So the good news is that it's not a multiple of that. It's still within manageable ranges. So I think, to Tom's point, when once business values start to recover somewhat based on on how we can assess them, I think that's when you'll see things start to tighten a little bit. They tightened a little bit this year, but not a lot.
Okay.
David? Jean? You know, I don't like split tax rates. I like a single tax rate because I think it sends a good message. But it's the economics, and you can't fight that. And as the economy will improve, because it has to improve at some point, everything will level out. So eventually we'll be getting down to the single, where I'll be happy. But I understand. I mean, I understand the process, and you guys do a lot of work, and I understand your suggestion.
Thank you.
So.
I hope your brother will speak to you soon.
It might not be a bad thing.
I was thinking. You know, again, I also appreciate all the work that goes into this. Every year I ask for my repeat primer on this topic. Obviously very complicated, but you know, I think that your recommendation makes total sense. Everyone's in the same economic condition here, so I think balancing the tax rate this way is really our only option. And again, I look forward to a single tax rate at some point. I think we'll get there. We're not that far off.
No.
So, all right. Any other questions from the board?
I just have a question. Where some of the businesses don't provide that I&E information that you request, and if you don't get it, you get fined, is it to the businessman's benefit for them to actually give you the proper information?
It is the law, actually, that they have to provide that to us. And
Right.
if they don't, they might lose their right to appeal at the appellate tax board.
Okay.
So if they file for an abatement, they're not gonna get one granted because they didn't comply with that. And if it goes further to the appellate tax board, then they look at that as well. Well, you didn't comply, so therefore they might deny the appeal.
Yeah, but also the information that they would provide, the more accurate figures, wouldn't that really ultimately benefit them in setting the tax rate?
It could.
Yeah,
I
so
think it benefits everybody.
Everybody.
I mean, the goal, the charge for the Board of Assessors is fair and equal, cash value, and if we don't have all the tools that we need to have in order to do that, it's unfair to those who are providing the information versus those that aren't.
Thank you.
Any input from the public? Come to the microphone, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dennis Naughton, 4 Everett Lane. A question first on the people who failed to submit the I&E. Is that a matter of public record who failed to do that and who did submit it?
Well, I think it could be a public record who didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't be.
I don't know that, but
What
that's
it-
probably something that we would
We
want to
would have to
validate.
check, we have to check with.
Well, I'll check back with you. I find
Yeah,
that very interesting.
just
I
to
find it
make sure
disturbing
that we give
that's
you the
going on.
proper,
Yeah.
I mean, we can't show it to anybody what they give us, that's only the discretion of the Board of Assessors.
But whether or not
So we can
they give
never
it-
reveal what is in there, that's just going to the Board of Assessors. And what is in there is just, we need to establish what the market rents are. So it's not their business income, it's strictly only what are the market rents towards that building, what are the expenses towards that building, what is the vacancy towards that building. And then you establish a capitalization rate, and then we work that all out, with the information they gave us.
Yeah.
Okay? So I can't say people didn't supply the right information. I mean, they put their signature on there. It is the right information, what we are getting.
I
So
assume
I
the
would never
document
say-
says under penalty of perjury somewhere at the bottom?
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
but I can't say that they give me the wrong information. I could never say that, That is the information I was given, and it was signed, so.
Well, anyway, my main point is I hope the board will support the split rate. I'm probably the opposite of Ginny. Philosophically, I would always be for a split rate because I think that that's one of the benefits that can accrue to a community from a business. Not everybody who does business with Foxborough businesses is a Foxborough taxpayer, and so those people who aren't can contribute via the dual tax rate, I think, to our coffers, particularly since we have an unbroken record of never passing a 2.5 override, so that we don't have any of that added capacity. Plus, totally irrelevant, but I mean, I just learned today that water rates are proposed to go up 6% next week and sewer rates 2%. So I'm here just to speak on behalf of the resident homeowner, and hope you'll adopt the split tax rate. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other citizens?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I just want to congratulate the staff and the board for providing such very good information, detailed information. I've been reviewing this information for a long time. I have the gray hairs to show it. But I will tell you, this is the most complete package of information I've ever seen. So I just want to say congratulations. Really nice job.
Thank you.
And it's really helpful to have the kind of level of information for you as a policy board to understand what you're acting on. And I appreciate the level of detail that was put into it. So thank you.
Thank you. No further questions. We'll close the public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing on the classification.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we need a motion to adopt the residential factor of 0.963876. Are you making that motion? I'll make that motion. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
If,
Thanks
in
very
order
much.
to, thank you, in order to expedite our filing with the Department of Revenue, I know you like to save your signatures to the end, but if I could just get one of your signatures from each of you on this document here, that'd be great. Appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Want to sign that back?
Yeah. Thanks, Tom.
Next item is Maya Bill Gain.
I think Rich Pierce is going to be here tonight.
And Rich Pearson. This is regarding the Maya Super Bowl request for fee waiver.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board, Mr. Keegan. Thank you for having us here again today. Before I begin, I'd just like to confirm with Mr. Keegan that you're in receipt of an email from Dan Murphy
Yes, I
representing
am.
the Patriots.
Yes, I am.
Asking us to speak on behalf of him as the licensee of this event.
Yes, I just received that this evening. That's
Yeah,
right.
thank you very much.
Yeah.
We also brought with me tonight is our attorney, Joe Scardino, to help explain some of the information that we sent you last week. We hope you, with the presentation today, we hope you will clearly understand who we are as an association of member schools, but also with the research of our attorney, for your benefit as well as ours, to better understand how we fit in with the anti-aid amendment and your municipal legal concerns and/or responsibilities. I think we've articulated who we are as an association, who the MIA is to you before, but just to quickly make sure you do understand that we are an association of 374 member schools. We support approximately 227,000 student athletes in 33 sports across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The students that participate in the tournaments that we help to organize and run do not pay any entry fees to these tournaments. So much of our revenue and much of the work that we do is to support these tournaments and these athletes to participate in the tournament experience. I would equate that to many of my children here in town played AAU sports. Many of your children might have played AAU sports, and you paid fees for those. You paid fees to get in those tournaments. You paid costs to participate in AU sports. The students in Massachusetts, the students in Foxborough don't have those costs to participate in tournaments. There is no cost to participate. You probably also know that we offer numerous workshops above and beyond the tournament experience. We offer leadership workshops for middle school students, girls and women in sports, bullying prevention, LGBT workshops for coaches, captains workshops for captains of all the schools in our association. We do coaches education. We participate in a great deal of wellness prevention activities throughout the year, chemical health prevention and education, AED and CPR training. We also have a sports medicine committee that works hard to support all the student athletes of Massachusetts and to help raise concussion awareness across the Commonwealth. We have a broad spectrum of what we do for kids. We give back to our schools, all of our students, and certainly the students of Foxborough. We work to offer these opportunities back to the students for a very, very clear public purpose for all these students. I'm sitting before you today to re-articulate many of the things you might know. As a representative of the MIAA, of course. I'm a former educator of 23 years, 4 of those years here at Foxborough High School, as you probably know. I hope you will consider this request of who we actually are and how we make a difference for students. If you would allow our attorney, Joe Scardino, to talk a little bit about the samples and examples that you were sent last week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Keegan. For the record, I'm Attorney Joseph Scardino of 1881 Worcester Road, Framingham, Massachusetts. And my client, the MIAA, has requested that I attend tonight's meeting to inform and explain their legal and tax status under various and appropriate laws. I would first like to draw your attention, in your packets, I believe you received some information from us, to the exhibit marked number 1. This document represents the original Articles of Organization for the MIAA. Draw your attention to the highlight in the first line that says Chapter 180. This is the document that is filed for all nonprofit corporations that are organized under Chapter 180. So all of your charitable contributions, charitable institutions in Massachusetts that are organized as corporations organize under this chapter. Next, I'd like to draw your attention to Exhibit 1A, which is a determination made by the Office of the Attorney General, Division of Public Charities, notifying the MIAA of its determination that it is, in fact, a charitable corporation and is required to file the appropriate Form PC with the Attorney General's office pursuant to their requirements. However, this is only one half of the tax pedigree process. The other half is the famous institution in Washington known as the IRS. Now I would like to ask you to look at exhibit number 2, which is a determination letter issued by the IRS that it is a charitable institution under Chapter 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. This designation is important because it dictates the limit on charitable contributions taken on income tax returns. You will see stated on this letter that the IRS specifically says that it is not a private foundation. Now you ask yourself, is the MIAA still a charitable organization today? And the way one determines that is to go online. In the olden days, there was a publication that was issued. The publication got to be about 3 inches thick, and because organizations are approved every day, the IRS went to an online process. I draw your attention to Exhibit 2A, which shows us with our tax identification number. And on the far right, I draw your specific attention to the deductibility status, where it says PC. What does the letters PC stand for? Well, let's look at the Exhibit 2B. 2B says the code PC means a public charity and a deductibility limitation of 50%, meaning that you can deduct up to 50% of your income for the particular institution. There is no higher status. The 50% organization listed in the IRS publications lists churches, educational institutions, entities that you come and have known as charitable institutions. And these documents have not been prepared for this hearing. These exist publicly. They're a matter of public record. And with respect to these documents, my comment, I'd like to say that there's been a question about whether we are a charity, whether what our website says it really is kind of irrelevant. We all are known as by nicknames, but your real official name is the one that's on your birth certificate, and what I've shown you is the equivalent of a corporate birth certificate. The town has previously supplied my client with an article written in February of 2006 in the edition of City and Town. This is a publication, I believe, that's generated by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue and speaks on various subjects of taxing interest to the cities and towns. And the publication, I believe, was provided to my client because it was indicated that the town could not waive the ticket fees because it was not a proper use of public money. So I would like to draw your attention to the Exhibit 3, which I included in your packet. And the relevant section says, however, the anti-aid amendment, and before I actually read the, just to give you a little bit of background, this is not a mass general law. This is an amendment to the Massachusetts Constitution. And it evolved basically because there was a concern about the diversion of public funds into various areas such as religious education. And there even needed to be an amendment in order so that scholarships could be given to attend UMass. So this is the genesis of this particular piece of law. And the relevant section that I'd like to draw your attention to is, however, the anti-aid amendment does not preclude a city or town from purchasing specific services from private organizations in order to carry out a public purpose. The public funds, the analogy is, I guess, that grants, contributions, and other items might not be possible for a city or town to spend money on. But this article is supported by the fact that the anti-aid amendment allows the exclusion for a public purpose. And in the very next sentence, it goes on to say, further, as with public purpose limitation discussed above, if the expenditure is for a valid public purpose, but also incidentally benefits a private organization, the expenditure will generally not violate the anti-aid amendment. So you ask yourself, what is the public purpose that the MIAA serves? In addition to Mr. Pearson's comments, I would like to draw your attention back to Exhibit 1 of the Articles of Organization. And in that exhibit, under the corporate function, if I may indulge your patience, the purpose for which this corporation is formed is to organize, regulate, promote interscholastic athletics for secondary schools of Massachusetts. I might add that the 322 schools that are members, you've heard from my client, as I said, that they promulgate the rules. They schedule and promote the competition, promulgate safety rules, provide training for coaches, officials, and parents. In summary, they're involved with every aspect of secondary school athletics. And they are the only authorized regulatory body for secondary school athletics. This public purpose is necessary to provide for the safe and equitable administration of secondary school athletics and cannot be properly exercised by any individual school. Not only is there no legal impediment to granting the waiver, as we learned from previous discussions with the Anti-Aid Amendment, but their very action was contemplated by Section 8 of the lease, which we've included as Exhibit 4. Between the town and Gillette, which provides, and I quote, that the selectmen of the landlord may from time to time on application of the tenant exempt charitable events at the stadium for ticket fee payments. Now, I know provided this evening, and I know Mr. Keegan has acknowledged his receipt of the letter from Gillette, that the stadium authorities believe that our event, the Super Bowl coming up at Gillette Stadium, is such an event. And I suggest that the Super Bowl tournament is such an activity since the event is pursuant to our public purpose, which I've gone over with you. In summary, this matter which is before you this evening, it doesn't matter how you approach it, whether you look at the corporate or tax status of the MIAA, whether you look at the application of the Anti-Aid Amendment, whether you look at the lease, there are no legal impediments to this board granting the T fee waiver. In reaching your decisions, please consider that it's about providing opportunities, building self-esteem, preserving youthful memories of life playing out on a big stage at Gillette. I'd like to thank you on behalf of the MIAA for this opportunity.
Thank you. Bill, would you like to comment, please?
Sure, thank you very much, and thank you for being here tonight to address the issue. Let me just say for the outset that I think the MIA is a great organization. I have no issue with them at all in terms of what they're advocating for tonight. I understand the position, and I'd be surprised if they didn't advocate for that, because obviously they feel the need to make their case for this purpose. But I come at it from a little different perspective. This is a new issue for me. I've never dealt with this before, so this is new with me. So I took a fresh perspective on it and looked back at all the pieces of information that have been collected over the years, along with the information that you've provided here tonight as well. Several weeks ago, I reported to the board that the MIAA Interscholastic Athletic Association had spoken to me about the possibility of eliminating the fee that is due the town through the sale of tickets for the annual MIAA Super Bowl events that are held at Gillette Stadium in December. The last time I reported to you on this matter, I indicated that I had spoken to the MIAA prior to their request to appear before the board, and I had indicated to them that I had evaluated their request and looked at the previous research that had been performed in this matter. Based on that information, I had indicated that I could not support this request before the board, though it is within the board's discretion, and I maintain that this evening, to act as they see fit in this matter. My reasons for not supporting the waiver is based on the following concerns. First, the MIA is a private nonprofit association according to their own website definition. According to the stadium lease agreement, the Selectmen landlord may from time to time on application of the tenant exempt charitable events, which is a key operative word here, charitable events, at the stadium for ticket fee payments. It is my understanding that the event for which this waiver is being sought is not a charitable event as per the requirement of the state Anti-Aid Amendment. According to the MIAA website, tournaments and other student night services make up nearly 61% of the MIAA annual budget. These tournaments charge admission tickets to each of these events, and the funds are used to offset the annual operating costs of the association. 38% of that budget, of the MIAA budget, is personnel-related expense. By charging admission and not asking for donations, it appears that the characterization that this event is a charitable event is an overstatement of the term. The second item, I will note that I did see this evening that I did get an email from the stadium indicating that they acknowledged the fact that the MIA was making this request tonight and that they endorsed their efforts to do so. That was my second concern, was the fact that the lease agreement mentions that the tenant may request this waiver of the landlord, and that the MIA really would have no standing other than the fact that they just recently they received permission from the stadium itself to make such a request. I do take issue with the request that has been made, and I'll get back to that in just a minute. The MIA does not meet the definition of being an organization who can accept public money or property or loan of credit as defined by the Anti-Aid Amendment in the Massachusetts Constitution, as they are not an organization which is publicly owned and under the exclusive control, order, and supervision of public officers or public agents authorized by the Commonwealth. According to the MIA website, in a document dated October 28, 2014, the list of MIA Board of Directors includes names of 2 private school representatives, which, by the way, are Catholic schools. The MIA has previously indicated that they would consider accepting a reduced amount of the fee if the board would be so inclined to take such an action. The process for changing the fee amounts that are stated in the lease agreement would require a town meeting vote. Absent such a vote, it does not appear that it is within the board's authority to grant such a reduced fee amount. The authority to change fees under the lease agreement was defined by the action taken at the special town meeting held on December 6, 1999, where under Article 1, Section 2 of that establishes the board's authority with respect to amending, modifying, or changing the fees. The value of the fee that is presently defined in the lease agreement yields payments. We would yield a payment in lieu of tax revenue of just under $50,000. So the request here, I want to be clear about the fact that the request being made here tonight, if granted, would be under $50,000, around $46,000 to $47,000 in value. And the concern I have beyond that is that once granted, it continues to pay every year thereafter. As such, you grant it, you therefore proceed accordingly. Finally, as the tax revenue as this is a tax revenue to the town, I cannot recommend that this use of revenue be used for this purpose. Similar to the MIAA, the town values all of its revenues as a source of funding that supports our annual operating budget. If this waiver was to be granted and it resulted in an annual waiver, it would reduce a town revenue source that annually supports town services. Absent a direct benefit to the residents of this community, I cannot support this expenditure. I respect the fact that ultimately the board has discretion to consider this action. However, I have considered the matter carefully and wanted the board to understand the position I am recommending and the reasons for this recommendation. It's purely not in any way, shape, or form against the MIAA. I want to be very clear about that. However, based upon the details that I have read, I don't think it's something that I can support on the various merits. I also just want to point and go back to the document that the council had presented to you relative to which is his item 3, which points to under the prohibitions against certain expenditures in the Anti-Aid Amendment. In that same paragraph, in that same document, it points out under the second paragraph of the Anti-Aid Amendment, no grant, appropriation, or use of public money or property or loan or credit of loan shall be made or authorized by the Commonwealth or any political subdivision thereof for the purpose of founding, maintaining, or aiding any infirmary, hospital, institution, primary or secondary school, or charitable or religious undertaking for which it is not publicly owned and under the exclusive control, order, and supervision of public officers or public agents authorized by the Commonwealth. So therein lies the key limitation there, and that this is not a wholly publicly run agency. I think with respect to what council also presented this evening, it was I don't have any quarrel with the fact of the tax status of the agency. I think they are clearly an organization that can qualify under the IRS regulations. The issue for me is that it does not necessarily qualify them under the Anti-Aid Amendment requirements, which are a higher standard than that which is provided for under the IRS regulations. So, in a summary, board members, it is your decision, and I respect that. However, I cannot, in good conscience, as your manager, recommend that this action be taken tonight, and all due respect to the presentation that was made.
Thank you, Bill. Ginny, would you like to start with any questions or comments?
Well, in the past years, I have voted against this waiver, and the reason being, this is tax money that is owed to the town of Foxborough. The arrangement we have with Gillette Stadium is that it's called payment in lieu of taxes. In other words, they don't pay real estate taxes per se, just like any homeowner does or a business does, other business in town does. What we get is $2, I believe it's $2.55 per ticket sale. And that's our tax money. That's what we get for real estate tax. And so I think that asking for this waiver is inappropriate, because it's just as if I went to the, town government and said, you know what, I've given a lot of money for charities around school. I think I would like to get a waiver on my real estate taxes. And I just look at it that way. So I am inclined, once again, not to support this waiver. And I agree with Mr. Keegan's memo to us, and I support his recommendation, and I do not support the waiver. David?
What do you project for ticket sales for the entire day?
Last year's ticket sales were 18,028, I believe. The previous year was 13,000. I think we're closer to the 18,000 number over the past 7 or 8 years. The 18,000 from last year was the third lowest. So it's going to be probably in that 17, 18 ballpark.
In terms of and people at gate attendance?
That's correct. That's
so
correct.
That's not the actual value of the tickets?
No, I'm asking for the actual cash value.
The actual cash value?
Approximately.
The cash value last year was $46,109. That's the ticket fee.
The ticket fee.
Is that the ticket fee? Is that the question, or are you asking about the actual ticket sales?
How much do you make in total for the event? What is the total amount of revenue?
I didn't do that number up. So I mean, it's 18,000 times the ticket sales. The ticket sales were both student and adults. So I don't have that figure.
Face value of the ticket is?
Face value of the ticket was 17 and 14 last year.
17 for adults?
14
for children.
Now, Rich, did that include the extra fee that you put on the ticket last year? Because we denied this last year, and you added $2 to the ticket.
That is correct. It included a $2 additional fee from the previous year,
Right.
but not the full $255.
Right, but so the regular face value would have been $15 and
15 and 12 was what it was the previous year.
Okay.
David, any other questions?
Randy, did we include any of this revenue in our tax projections?
The short answer to your question is yes. We did not assume that there would be any such waiver for this event.
Might I add to that, if you would? We did not have a contract until recently, so there was no contract in place, until the past 30 to 60 days. So just so you know that there was no guarantee that we were going to come to the stadium in a contractual agreement like we did many years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. We had a 3-year agreement and a 3-year waiver. So there was no contract in place.
If I may respond to one of Mr. Keegan's points, and it was also brought up. Again, I'm concerned about this misinterpretation of the anti-aid amendment. The seminal case that's quoted in the materials as a footnote, it's Commonwealth versus City of Springfield. In that case, the City of Springfield purchased 766 services. It's an older case, but it's a Supreme Judicial case that's still law today. And the Supreme Judicial Court, in looking at the test, said that the 766 services were necessary for the public school system, but were not provided by the public school system. So it was fine for them to be purchased outward. And what we're talking about here is the regulation and administration of interscholastic athletics at the secondary school level. And that's what the organization really exists to do. And that is analogous to the 766, the town of City of Springfield School Committee case. So we do feel that that we do fit within the anti-aid amendment. And as far as the charity status is concerned, there is no higher, I can't present anything else to you that says that we're any higher in the IRS's eyes as a public charity. And we have a document with us that shows the American Heart Association is the same documentation that we do. And that is certainly, I would say, I'm sure we could get unanimity of opinion on that level, that that's a charity that even Mr. Keegan probably would support.
Excuse me, sir, do private citizens make donations to the MIA?
Do private citizens?
Do private citizens write checks to your organization like they do to the American Heart Association?
No.
Okay.
But they can.
Okay.
And if they are, they're deductible at the same rate that they are for the American Heart Association. We choose not to raise funds primarily from that particular endeavor.
So you're entirely funded, or your major funding source of these tournaments?
75%, I believe. Our documents are on the web. Our major revenue category, 75% is from student tournaments and other student services.
So if this tournament was so for instance, the state wrestling tournament was here at Foxborough High School last winter. All the proceeds go to MIA, not to the host school, and not back to the participating schools?
So there's different levels of tournaments. So it's very possible for that wrestling tournament. I'm not sure exactly which one you're describing. If it was a certain level, sectional level, or a state South final, that would be an MIA revenue regulated tournament or run tournament. So all those revenues, the ticket sales, would be part of our association offerings. There are other tournaments that happened in other sports that may be run by the schools, might be a first or second round of a tournament. That's the only reason I was trying to explain that. But this tournament in particular, the Super Bowls and the state semifinals before this, were all run and managed by our association and our member schools and the governance structure.
Thank you.
How's that? John?
Bill, could you go through that anti-aid language again and describe the total public control?
Yes, the key issue there, and I'm not necessarily taking quarrel with what Council's point was made earlier relative to the issue of whether or not the IRS, this is not an IRS issue or a 501c3 issue for me per se at all. I think the key issue is, are they in fact a wholly publicly owned and run agency? And the answer to that is no, because based at least on their website, their board of directors reflects 2 members who come from private schools.
But that's a condition by which, if you don't meet that definition, you are outside the anti-aid.
You're not publicly owned. You're not publicly owned and operated by.
Right. So anti-aid would apply to you.
Yes, in that particular instance, I believe so.
You read it. It seemed to be pretty clear.
And Mr. Gray, that's not the standard it's not the standard in the article. The article that I quoted you says, it does not preclude a city or town from purchasing services from private organizations. It doesn't say what Mr. Keegan says, which is...
What are we purchasing?
The administration of secondary school athletics.
Okay, we're here to waive a fee.
That's part of the process.
Okay.
We're actually not here to waive a fee. We're actually here to waive a tax obligation for a business in the town of Foxborough,
Thank you, Jim.
whose lease says that the only way they pay real estate taxes of the town is for a ticket fee of $2.55. And on your website, which I noticed on your website last year, you described it or characterized it as a Foxborough user fee. It's not a town of Foxborough. You said you had to add the money. We had to add $2 whatever as for a Foxborough user fee. That's a mischaracterization. If you had to add the $2, you had to add the $2. But saying it's a Foxborough user fee was not true. It's the tax obligation for the entity that happened to donate the stadium for your event. So if whatever happens, it would be nice on the website next time around just to be a little more clear on what it is. I don't even
put that in at all. Just say how much the ticket price is.
Madam Chair, I think in the end, we've come before you today just to, again, articulate who we are as an association of member schools. That's really what I'd like you to leave with. We also brought our attorney, certainly not to be argumentative or difficult, just to really clarify what his experience as an attorney has seen the law. And so hopefully you will see that who we are. You will accept that as who we are. I was also hoping that by stretching our resources to our attorney, it might help you better understand the law as it is specified. So that's really what we're here for today, to have you better understand that, to let you make your judgment as the Selectmen of Foxborough for the value of this to our association, to our member schools, and all the students of the Commonwealth. That's really what we're here for today.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I mean, this has been back and forth for a number of years, and I think we've heard all the you know, I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but I do appreciate the passion on both sides. A couple things that came up tonight, and I appreciate the effort, and I told you that today, the research that you did. You know, we've got one attorney saying absolutely the ducks are in a row. Not too long ago, we asked the firm of Durensis to write his opinion, and he basically said he didn't know, not a lot of case law, but it's up to the discretion of the selectmen. So it's not wrong if we do it, and it's not right if we do it. And that's kind of what I came in here tonight thinking, and both sides still hasn't swayed me. I think there's enough on either side you could go, but my opinion is if we wanted to do this, we could do this without violating the law. A couple things that stuck out. In your last item, you summarize it, this is tax revenue for the town, and you can't recommend it. And I understand where that's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little disingenuous, not from you, but from the town's perspective, that we've got a contract that the selectmen had put together when this whole business craft organization came, that said, here's a pilot program, payment in lieu of taxes. If it's an NFL football game, you get this amount. If it's a soccer game, you get this amount. If it's a wedding or if it's something else, it's all spelled in here. And for whatever right or wrong, or you know, the selectmen at the time and the town government and the private business agreed to this. Part of that contract is if a charitable organization is deemed worthy, or if it's voted by the board, we can give that that opportunity. Okay, so to say across the board it's tax revenue and you can't recommend it, why have that contract with the selectmen? So I mean, maybe we should revisit this, or take that thought process out and say, rather than saying not recommending it, take it for its merit. And if it fits it within the context of the contract and what we're trying to do with this whole piece that we put together on Route 1, and I say piece we put together because we own the land, they own the structures and the business, and we kind of work together. I look at it as a bigger picture, that the police are entirely paid for, the fire is entirely paid for, plus there's a fee that goes on top of it, which goes back to the town to administer that. We're bringing in a lot of revenue. We're not bringing in anything. The private business is bringing in revenue to the town. We've got the meals tax. We've got people stopping at gas stations. We've got the kind of the prestige of having the Super Bowl here. If you look at that whole large picture, I think it makes some sense. And you know, and I think all of this people at the table understand what Maya is about. And some people make some decent salaries over there. It's a business. But at the tail end of that business, there's a need for the kids throughout Massachusetts that you know, it's not just football, it's all of it. So I think it meets the requirements of a charitable. I think it's a good thing for the town. If we put on our blinders and say, you know, if this is tax revenue and we're never going to turn it away, you know, I draw the attention to the last meeting where, if I was at that meeting, I probably would have voted the same as the majority. But we had a business that came to us that had a fire, and they asked for a waiver of their fee. And granted, it's only $2,500, but I watched the hearings, and it was termed that it was the right thing to do or it was a good thing to do. So we waived that $2,500 fee. Now, if I wanted to be on the other side, as Jeannie's saying, it's a tax and we can't do it, or your item 5, it's a tax, it goes to the general revenue, we should not have waived that. You know, if someone's house burns down and they can't use it for a year, do we give them tax freedom for the year and not pay it? So it's not exactly the same, but it's the same, you know, to make that blanket statement, we're the selectmen, we can't give up taxes. I feel that this is part of the contract that we worked out, and it's not giving up taxes. It's working within the contract that it gives us the opportunity to vote on it. And if we say yes, we say yes. If we say no, we say no. But it's not giving up anything, because the opportunity came to us within the context of the contract. So again, a little long-winded, but I see when we start to stack this thing up that says, all right, item number 2, it's not the craft organization, so we can't agree to it. Another item, well, if we split it in the middle, maybe give them a reduced price, we can't do it without going to town meeting. You know, we could probably find 6 or 7 other reasons, but if we look in this with an open mind, is this something that's good for both organizations? I think it has some merit.
Just a comment on the, what you're talking about is Lakeview Pavilion, and we voted to waive the fee, but we also said that when they renewed their business, probably in September or October, we would prorate the fee. And that was a suggestion by the ABCC that where if due to the fire, there's no business, they can't conduct business, then we can prorate the fee. But we didn't waive it completely. We waived it with the idea is we'll probably prorate that liquor license fee.
But that's the operable word, probably. It gives us the ability to make a discretionary call, rather than just saying
But
it's
that's
tax
a little,
revenue and we can't.
But that's a little, I think that's a little different. This is real estate taxes.
That's fine. It's not the exact
that's a
same
little
thing,
different.
but it's enough on the big picture to say, I think we need to step back and revisit the position. And it's, when we have a statement that it's tax revenue, we can't say no to it.
John, and then I'd like to make a comment.
Yeah, Richard, last year you levied the extra $2 on the ticket prices. Did you see any drop-off in attendance due to that?
No.
No. Okay.
But you probably know this, in sports, outdoor sports, weather, matchups, distance that people have to travel are all factors in that. So I would hate to measure the 13,000, the $4,000 people less from the previous year and say that, we had a $4,000 increase when the 18,000 that we had last year was third from the lowest. So I don't think that, I wouldn't be able to effectively make a direct correlation
there's no correlation between it, but it didn't decrease your traffic.
Oh, it did not. Okay. But the equalization could have very well been the matchups. It could have been the local nature of the teams that had easier transportation to get there. So it would be very tough for me to make a direct connection between ticket sales and total attendance and from year to year with an exact matchup because of the
Last year, it seemed to work out all right. You increased the ticket prices, which didn't seem to have a negative economic effect. Didn't seem to. The town still got its revenue. You still got close to your expected revenue that went into your operations. Is there any reason why you couldn't do that again?
There's no reason we can't do it, no. But we would prefer not to keep raising ticket prices on all the parents and the people that are coming to the event. So we'd like to,
Yeah, well, like I said,
to work
it didn't seem like there was a wholesale outrage at the ticket price. They still showed up, and more showed up last year than it showed up in previous years.
You'd probably want to ask the parents that paid the ticket prices more, but yeah,
I'm just asking.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would come to the stadium to watch the game unless they had a connection.
Of course.
So I don't think $2 is going to turn people away.
I just want to give you just another comment in terms of, as you know, historically, I do not support this waiver. But, I think a word that was just used earlier was that this benefits all of the students throughout the Commonwealth. 322 schools. I don't know how many cities those represent, but one of my big concerns is that Foxborough is subsidizing this event for all of the other schools that participate. Why is it Foxborough's responsibility to do that? Why is it not shared by every other participating school in this event? So, or in anyone who participates in Maya, because everyone is supposed to share in the benefit of Maya. Everyone does benefit from Maya. So again, I feel that it's not right for the taxpayers to subsidize the entire event for all of the school children in the Commonwealth. So I don't know if there's something that you do to your dues annually to cover this so that it's spread out evenly for everybody, but I just don't think that this approach is one that is sensible for the town to consider subsidizing, because it represents our tax revenue. So I just wanted you to understand where.
If you don't mind,
Suggestion.
just so that you do understand, there's many towns and municipalities across the Commonwealth that do help and support athletics when they come to their venues, whether it be a high school gymnasium, whether it be wrestling in Foxborough High School that affords us the opportunity, or whether it be in Lowell or Fitchburg or in Springfield. So just so that you do understand, this is a specific request to you here at Foxborough for the 5 of you today for this venue in this town. But I can assure you that there are numerous towns across the Commonwealth that do assist us and offer us an opportunity.
I understand that, but I think in comparison to the scale of this is, in terms of the impact on the towns, this is significant.
Understood.
So,
thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Bill, did you want to?
I'm fine. I just,
Okay.
I appreciate all the comments. That's the reason why it's here tonight.
Good dialogue.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Some of the audience.
Any comments from the audience? Please come to the microphone.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and for the benefit of, I guess, Mr. Feldman, who hasn't heard me speak against this before, I'm a retired high school principal, lifelong educator, 39 years. I have plenty of experience at the MIAA. I'm not going to criticize them here. I'm not going to praise them here, because that's not why we are here, as far as I see it. We're here simply to make a determination as to whether Foxborough should contribute, as its taxpayers, should contribute a greater share than any other town will ever be asked to contribute, with absolutely no basis for it, whatever. I have to say that, and I don't mean to be fresh, but I did find it amusing that there was a legal component here tonight after listening to last year. I want to just say that, through the chair, I hope MIAA will not be granted this waiver, and I hope that they will be polite enough not to come back if they are not granted it, not to come back and go through this every year. I'd like to see this done as a taxpayer in this town. I'm a great supporter of education. I think anybody who knows me knows that. I devoted my life to it. And that includes athletics. But $40,000 to $50,000 a year donated by our taxpayers is just wrong. And I think if you go back and count it up, we probably already donated $250,000 in past waivers, other boards. Don't do it. Please don't do this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Ginny, can you make a motion on this, please?
Do I make a positive? Do I have to?
Bill, should this be in a positive form?
The request is, before you, is to grant the waiver.
Okay.
So, so I would say that the motion should be to see if the Board of Selectmen will grant the waiver of the ticket fee assessment.
Okay.
That is required under the stadium lease.
Thank you.
Okay, I make a motion to grant the waiver for the ticket fee assessment as requested by the MIAA for the Super Bowls to be played in December at Gillette Stadium, 2014.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
Another further discussion, and it's going to sound odd, but I do have a passion for this thing in front of us, and I've supported it. And I appreciate the board's passion and reasoning. and I think I'd reached out. It would have been nicer. I shouldn't say nicer. What's the word I'm looking for? I wanted to hear the passion from the other side, and it wasn't necessarily from Maya. It was a craft organization of why this was important to them and why it fit in context to this. And I asked you a few times if that could happen, and I just didn't hear it. I didn't hear the reasoning coming back other than it's a dollar thing and it's a good organization. And I thought tonight was the opportunity to hear it. And we don't agree often in the back there when you come up and speak, but you made a lot of sense tonight when you came up. And you know, it was clear last year. This year was kind of a little wavery. To hear the legal stuff, I didn't need the attorney to tell me that it was the right thing or the wrong thing. It wasn't more of a legal issue as it was a is it the right thing to do issue. So I'm going to support the board on this for those reasons. And again, like I said from the beginning, I don't think there is a right or wrong answer to this, but it just doesn't seem to be fitting in the last couple of years here. So,
Any other comments? All those in favor? All those opposed? 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks for coming out.
Okay, the next item is Bill Yukna, Town Hall Project, approved contracts to hire Lerner, Ladd & Bartels for architect and design, and the Vertex Companies incorporated for OPM.
Anyone take the other group that's still
Oh.
here? They're still here?
Yeah. And Dave-
This should be relatively brief. Not only Bill sitting here as well, if that's okay with you, Madam Chair.
Yep.
That's all right.
Thank you, Bill.
Well, your last vote was basically just to put on the warrant the amount that we're requesting for the soft cost. What I'm asking you to do tonight is actually to vote to approve the two applicants that have been accepted by the subcommittee and pushed forward to the Board of Selectmen in this endeavor. The one issue that I do want to make very clear to you that what I'm asking you to vote for is a total package price, meaning the architect contract as well as the OPM's contract will be broken into Phase 1 and Phase 2. They understand in Phase 1 that that's what the soft cost that was approved at town meeting stood for. And in Phase 2 only happens if, once we go to town meeting, presumably next fall, it gets approved. That's the only time their contract goes forward. The reason we're asking for this is because we've locked the rates in and basically locked in the fee schedules. For the architect, their biggest part of their fee schedule obviously is in the design of the building itself and the bid documents. Their maintenance of the contract as it goes forward is the lower piece, and I don't really want to see that get jacked up at all. And from the OPM side, obviously, it's just the reverse. They have very little up front other than helping us manage the process of the design and getting through it, but their pricing is on this. The second half is really on what they staff the project with. We've negotiated a very good rate for the on-site clerk of the works and the way it used to be considered from a dollar point of view, and I don't want to lose that in Phase 2. So basically what we're looking for is a positive vote from the board for Lerner, Ladd & Bartels of $702,500 in total. Phase 1 of $507,675. Phase 2 of $194,825,000. And then a second vote of Veritex Incorporated, which is the OPM side of it, for $49,860 in Phase 1, $249,780 in Phase 2, for a total of $299,640. This would give us, the authority to basically complete the contracts that are in the process of being negotiated.
Okay. Bill, the total on Lerner, Ladd & Bartels?
$702,500.
500, okay.
For Phase 1 and 2.
Thank you. Any questions or concerns?
Madam Chair, that just gives you the details of that.
So just to clarify, this locks in some conditions of Phase 2.
Yeah, we already
that you've already negotiated.
Yeah, okay.
It locks in the entire Phase 2 for both parties.
Right, okay. Even though town meeting hasn't approved
Right,
Phase 2.
they don't get, in other words, in their contract, it's specifically stating what their duties are under Phase 1.
Right.
specifically stating what their duties are under Phase 2, but that Phase 2 only happens on a positive or an affirmative vote of the town in a subsequent town meeting.
Got it, thanks.
And on this particular vote, I'm going to abstain. I don't have a contract, or there's no business relationship with LLB, but I've worked with them in the past, and I've known them for a while, and I may be working with them in the future, I don't know, but I'd rather stay out of this vote.
Fair enough.
And also, for the record, we have not had any dialogue on this process at all about LLB,
I
so.
think you said that once before, too, so.
Well, it makes me nervous. When I abstain, people say, why are you abstaining? And I get a lot of my work from architects, and this happens to
understood.
be one of them.
So, Madam Chair, I just might make a recommendation for a motion here, that your motion would be to approve the appropriation or the awarding of contract for Lerner Ladd Bartels, architect designer for Phase 1 design through bidding, as is described in the, do you have that right there?
Yes.
All right, you can use that as your basis. And that way, it specifically talks about the Phase 1 and Phase 2 pieces of that. So I would use item 1, as is described here, as your basis for your motion.
Two separate motions?
Two separate motions,
Okay.
one for Vertex Companies and the other one's for Lerner Ladd Bartels.
Ginny, do you want to read that?
Okay, okay, the first one, I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the contract to hire Lerner, Ladd, and Bartels as architect designer for Phase 1, design through bidding, at $507,000, and Phase 2 construction, administration, and closeout at $194,825, subject to town meeting funding approval, for a total of $702,500.
I'll second that. Jeannie,
Any
do you
other
get the first number right?
No, just for the record, it was 507,675.
675, yeah.
Oh, that's not on here.
Yeah, so it was,
Sorry.
it's all right, 507, 675.
675?
Yeah,
But the total 702,500 is correct.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Do I have to do that again?
No.
Just
amend the number.
just
Thank
amend the
you.
number, yeah.
Thank you very much.
You can write that in the note right there.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none, abstain, 1. 401. Okay,
The second one?
yes, please.
I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the contract to hire the Vertex Companies as OPM for Phase 1 at $49,860 and Phase 2 at $249,780, subject to town meeting funding approval, for a total cost of $299,640.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 0, abstain, 1.
Okay, all set?
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Bill.
Bill.
Thanks for all your work on this, Bill, appreciate it.
Okay, so we should go back to the hearing, the continued public hearing for Fusion 5.
Stuck in traffic out there, it's pretty bad, it's wrong. It's bad out there.
I get stuck in traffic in here. I get stuck here, too. Yes, I apologize for the delay here.
We've already gone through the discovery phase. And I think, where did we leave off?
The memorandum that you had written,
Yes.
we had brought that up, and then we want some clarification from you, and that was why we delayed continued the hearing. So can I just read the memorandum items that you said?
Sure.
Okay, potential state law and Foxborough rules and regulations violations. Change in the premises as described on the license without prior written approval of the local licensing authority. Failure to keep premises clean and sanitary. Permitting an illegality on the licensed premise by storing drinks in an unsanitary manner. Failure to disclose all persons who have a direct or indirect beneficial interest in the license. I want to get back to that one later. And having an absentee manager. Potential violations of Foxborough rules and regulations. Change in the premises as described on the license without prior written approval of the local licensing authority, and naming an absentee manager on the license. What was in question was the failure to disclose all persons who have a direct or indirect beneficial interest in the license. We want to know
Yeah,
what that was about.
Well, there was some lack of clarity from the facts that we had that was developed by the Foxborough Police. On the face of it, the police report indicated that the person present and interviewed in this case, it would be Mr. Vivek Patel, was present on the several occasions that the Foxborough Police investigated, and he indicated himself to the Foxborough Police that he was in charge, that it was his operation, and he was in charge of all of the details of the operation of the club. There was a lack of clarity insofar as the license indicated that it was his sister who in fact was the manager, but evidently she was not present at the time the Foxborough Police had investigated. Now, insofar as beneficial interest, that's all we had based on the police report. A subsequent investigation showed that, in fact, the corporate structure for this property is a family-held, a closely held corporation. So there's no indication that there are other interests other than the Patel family. When we wrote the memo, it was all a course of potential violations as we were surveying all that we had from the police report.
Okay, that answers our concern. Thank you.
And I should say that once again, the Foxborough Police did a very thorough job in investigating this particular premises, and the reports that we have indicate that they had investigated, or at least visited, this property going back to December of 2013. And then it was the report that was written in September, but does reference other information that was developed in the winter and spring of 2014. So this is a matter that has really been under investigation for about a year, based on the reports. And what we have, which I think is undisputed, is a license that frankly has not been operational, has not been put to the public good since approximately April of 2014, and now is before you on this multiple issues that were brought forward having to do with potential violations of law and of your own regulations. And based on our conferencing of the matter, I took the opportunity, obviously, to speak to the applicant, to speak to counsel. It appears as though they are still several weeks away from putting this license back into operation. There's significant renovations being done on the property, and that prompts the need for some review by your board to determine whether or not you would grant an alteration of premises to the license, making sure, again, that its operation will be in the public good and in the public interest. But for the moment, this license is not operational. And I've suggested to council and to the applicant that for that reason, that this board should suspend the license until such time as this applicant get back before you with the proper request to alter the premises, and if approved, then find a date in which the license will again be operational.
So, David, then, if the board, basically, we would be finding that there was a change in premises without written approval by the local licensing authority. We would be finding that there's an issue with an absentee manager on this license?
Yes. Yeah, again, I think it's, I mean, obviously the applicant can speak for themselves on that, but I think it's abundantly clear from the police investigation that each and every time the Foxborough Police went to the premises, the named manager was not present and not in control of the premises as required.
Are there any other, based on what's in the report regarding the unsecured or the open liquor inventory and dust-covered liquor into
Right, I think
inventory.
that there's certainly sufficient evidence of the lack of clean and sanitary conditions that's required, again, under your rules. I cited the rules in the memo, all of which were supported by the police investigation. The one item where I think we can agree that there is no evidence of a lack of beneficial interest to anyone other than as disclosed in the corporate filings.
Dave, would the ABCC have to witness the destruction of the open bottles, and is that something that the ABCC has to?
There's any number of opportunities there, either the ABCC or its investigator, the Department of Public Health, or your own alcohol control agent. I think that my advice to your board is that you should be satisfied with any of those three with certification that in fact the product was disposed of properly.
The alcohol control agent would be for the town, would that be the police?
Yes,
Police, yes.
that would
There's
be the Foxborough Police.
There is a police officer that does that.
Because I myself would like to see that, not wait for ABCC to, something has to be done with that liquor.
Agreed, and I think, again, the Foxborough Police is very capable of handling that.
Madam Chair, I was going to recommend to you, I was obviously waiting for Dave to be here, but one of the things I was hoping that we would get out of this is a certification that act has actually been performed, so that so you would be comfortable knowing that work had been done. Okay.
Very good. Any other comments or questions for David?
I think before you got here, Dave, we covered a lot of issues, one of which, one of the reasons given for the absentee owner was that she was on maternity leave. So, are you aware of that?
I was, that's what I was told, but again, I think that this has been extending for almost a year.
Okay.
So
Thanks.
Thank you.
If you want to make a motion. Okay. To protect the public interest by ensuring that Fusion's license is accurate and the premises are safe, I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to suspend Fusion's license indefinitely until Fusion cures all legal and regulatory defects.
Second.
Under discussion, what we've done in the other ones, I think what might make sense if we agree on what the facts are, finding of facts. And once we agree to the finding of facts, then we can talk about the.
So you want to hold this motion until we take a motion of finding the facts?
Yes.
Okay, I'll move that the Board of Selectmen find the facts as presented accurate and appropriate.
I'm going to name them specifically, John.
Okay, good.
Okay. So, the board has found that there was an illegality on the licensed premise by storing drinks in an unsanitary manner. Do we do them individually? Or we list them all and then vote, correct?
Sure.
Okay. Also, finding a fact of having an absentee manager. And also finding a fact that there has been no request for alteration of the licensed premises.
And that they changed it. Not that there's no request, that they actually changed the premises.
Premises have been altered already, yes. I think that's everything.
Failure to keep premises clean and sanitary. I think there were 5
Said-
bullet items, everything
Yeah.
except for,
In addition to the permitting, in addition to the illegality of storing drinks in an unsanitary manner, there's another
Yeah,
one.
there's another one. Failure to
Okay.
keep premises clean and sanitary.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question for clarification? Is the keeping the premises clean and sanitary, isn't that something that should apply, for, if the license is in operation, if the facility, the bar is in operation, and at the time that it wasn't clean and sanitary, it was, when construction was underway and when the bar wasn't operating. So what it's, clean and sanitary would be something that would, I would think, would be, for example, a Board of Health type of issue, an unclean kitchen, an unclean bar, or something like. I think this doesn't quite fit, in a situation. I think what I heard from the board when we were in the earlier session of the hearing was that the board was concerned that there would be some kind of service going on, service of beverages going on while the construction was continuing. And I already informed the board that that would not be the case. The way that I was hoping that this would be treated would be that because I don't want to give the perception or the outside world a connotation or an idea that this license might be available, because there's a lot of speculation in licenses in Foxborough right now, as I think the board's aware of. And so what my suggestion is given that the renovations are going to be completed hopefully by year end, and subject to the we will have the application filed with you, that in essence that we escrow the license with you, that we that rather than suspending it, which is, let's say, is a negative, that we turn the license over to the selectmen, and that you hold it. Again, we will have the application for the alteration of premises to you by next Monday at the latest, as I informed the board earlier, and that maybe that would be a better way to proceed.
David, can I have your opinion on that?
It's the most unusual request that I'm, could be familiar with. I'm guided by Section 23, which tells us that we have the right to modify, amend, suspend, revoke, cancel a license. So my recommendation is within that range. I'm just not familiar with the idea of escrowing a license.
Well, isn't suspension, it's just that they still have the license, but they can't use it.
Well, that's true.
As opposed to revoking, where we would take away the
exactly.
license.
So I think it is a modification, if you will, and it's not the death penalty that might otherwise be the case.
So
I think we fully expect that you'll cure these conditions.
Absolutely.
You've already laid out a schedule for when you're going to come back with the premises modification.
That's correct.
And then I think we'll regroup and consider reinstating it.
I just have one question about the failure to keep premises clean and sanitary. So that was related to the construction?
Well, yes. I mean, it was abundantly clear from the photographs that it was unkept, unclean, and unsanitary. At the time, this license was in effect.
Okay. And even though there was not service happening at that time?
Well, there was not service because of the conditions, but the license was in effect, and service, could have occurred.
Yeah, like I said, unbeknownst to us, we were unaware that they were going through a renovation.
Yeah. Okay.
Madam Chair, in all due respect to council's position on this situation, I think that the statement here that the board wants to convey here is that you can't operate your business with a license in full operation. You can't operate that way when you hold a license.
Yeah.
You should have been more responsible in how you handled it. And I think that's the reason why you have to cite those reasons.
Okay.
Those situations.
Can we also include the immediate disposition of the unused and unsanitarily packaged alcohol through by the police department? I mean,
Do that
immediately.
as our action? As
We'll arrange for that as soon as the police department. I was told that the ABCC was the only one that could certify it. But if Foxborough has an officer that's willing to do that and to make that certification, we'll do that forthwith as soon as there's an officer available Monday or next week.
I know the chief has a short list of individuals who are designated
Yes.
as those
Okay.
officers.
That's,
Yeah.
we'll gladly do that. That's not something that we'll object to at all.
All right, so Debbie, do you have that motion? Can you read that back to us, please?
Or
The findings of fact.
The board has found that there are an illegal.
There was an illegality.
Illegality. Also finding fact of an absentee manager, and also finding fact that there have actually offered failure to keep premises clean and sanitary.
The first one is illegality on the licensed premises by storing drinks in an unsanitary manner. Having an absentee manager. Failure to keep premises clean and sanitary. And finding a fact that there was a change in the premises without prior written approval of the local licensing authority.
I think that motion still needs a second, so I'll second it.
Okay.
This is simply the finding of fact, right?
Right. Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. So would we close the public hearing then and then discuss the sanction?
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay.
I move that we close the public hearing in regard to Fusion 5.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I'm going to read that motion again, because now it's seconded.
Okay. So, this was the motion to, we were going to talk about the disposal of the alcohol, the correction of the clean and sanitary conditions, naming of an appropriate manager on the license, and the submission.
We can do this right now. That's all the language we need.
Okay. What page is it?
This is, this
Okay.
is another number. If you want, I can read this as the motion.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to suspend Fusion's license indefinitely until Fusion cures all legal and regulatory defects. Fusion could cure defects by obtaining approval for changes to the premises, completing the approved changes to the premises, disposing of all bottles of liquor stored in unsanitary fashion, again under the guidance of the Foxborough Police Department, and obtaining approval of Mr. Patel as the manager. This would protect the public interest by ensuring that Fusion's license is accurate and the premises are safe.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Good.
All right.
Thank you, ladies and
very
gentlemen.
much.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Our next item. Thank you, David.
More alcohol.
Steve's with us. You have one vote to take relative to the Market Street and the fire station property. Did you want to take that now? Or- Madam Chair, I have a motion for you that perhaps you want to read, and I'll explain it. And it's actually, the action only refers to the fire station itself, because the Market Street property was actually a tax taking, so you don't need to take a vote on that basis. So the action is to declare that the fire station property is surplus property, which would then allow us to continue along with the process of doing the RFP.
Okay.
Okay.
So there's two parcels that comprise that?
Yes, yeah, but you only need to vote
Just
on
one.
the fire station property.
Okay.
Because that was owned by the town.
Okay. So I move that the property located at 40 School Street, otherwise known as the old fire station, be declared as surplus property.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've already had some inquiries too, by the way, so it's good news.
Okay, so the next item is to talk about whether we delay or impose sanctions on liquor violations for the list of 7 businesses that we've already covered.
Madam Chair, before you get there, we did have correspondence with the 3 license holders who were heard last week and the dates that were preferred. I did send an email earlier. I don't know if it came across to your attention yet, but we do have dates from those 3 license holders that were preferred, if you will, for suspension based on your findings from a week ago.
Okay. Are you looking up a copy of that?
Do you have it there? We'll just see.
Do you have the dates?
Yeah, I have them here.
Okay, great. So we need to vote on accepting these dates,
Right.
correct? Thank you. Okay, so for Saga Steakhouse, Saga Hibachi Steakhouse, they've offered Thursday, November 27th, Friday, November 28th, and Tuesday, January 6th. So I move that we accept those 3 dates for Saga Steakhouse for their suspension.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
For Showcase Deluxe, Friday, 12/5, Monday, 12/8, and Wednesday, 12/10. I move that we accept those dates for Showcase Deluxe.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Friday,
Yeah.
December 5th.
Yep.
Monday, December 8th, and Wednesday, December 10th.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
For Tavolino Pizza, they've offered Thursday, November 27th, Thursday, December 25th, and Friday, February 6th.
I think they know they accepted at the last meeting.
Yeah, they were
actually,
they were
did
named
at the
at the
very
last
end.
I thought they
Different
offered
dates,
different
though,
days.
'cause one of them was
Did-
Christmas
yeah.
Day, we had that discussion.
Right, and one was,
Yeah, that's-
It still is.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
and
Yeah.
one was New Year's.
And I think in Thursday is Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Is that within the 60 days, February 6th?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
It is, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I move for that we accept Tavolino Pizza suspension dates of Thursday, November 27th, Thursday, December 25th, and Friday, February 6th, 2015 for suspension.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
We're in the process of drafting those decisions. In fact, I've got it completed enough now so that I expect to have them to the town manager tomorrow morning.
Okay, great.
Hey, was there any correspondence from the Renaissance Hotel?
Well, the correspondence we had received from them earlier was that they intended to appeal the decision of the board.
Okay.
Though technically their appeal doesn't ripen until they receive the written decision. Out of an abundance of caution, they sent the indication they would appeal directly to my attention within a couple of days of that hearing. That one was on the 12th. So that's the only party that I've heard from on the record, if you will, of an intention to appeal. I have heard mixed thinking from other license holders. It's impossible to know since they don't have the written decision yet. So again, with that, we have every expectation to be able to get those out tomorrow.
So once they go out tomorrow, once they get delivered, they have how many days to?
They have 5 days to notify us of their intention to appeal.
5 working days, 5 business days?
No, it's 5 business days in order to let us know of their intention to appeal. And that brings us to the question that the chair brought up, which is whether or not your board would agree to place a stay on those suspensions during the time of appeal. Although, you know, it's pretty obvious that with the dates of suspension scheduled to go into effect in these cases sometime in November, December, January, the likelihood, there's no likelihood, frankly, of the ABCC being able to hear any of these appeals anytime within, at the earliest, 6 months or so. So that presents the question that your board and other boards that sit as local licensing authorities have to determine for themselves after issuing a suspension whether or not you would issue a stay during the pendency of an appeal.
Dave, have all these people requested a delay in the imposition of the sanctions? Have all 7 of them?
Well, again, it's impossible to say without knowing whether or not there's going to be an appeal.
Okay.
The only one I know of is the Renaissance, and they have requested the stay during the time that they pursue their appeal. I think it's reasonable to assume that any of those license holders that do choose to appeal, and again, we don't know who else would, that they would have a similar request. It's only logical. Otherwise, the appeal could be mooted if the suspension goes into effect and then weeks or months later you're pursuing the appeal at the ABCC.
But the only way a stay would kick in is if they made an affirmative appeal to the ABCC.
That's my advice to the board, is that if there is an appeal, then you would have to make that determination of whether or not you would issue a stay.
They would have to make that appeal within 5 days.
Yes.
So why are these on here tonight? Why?
Because
why
you
you-
needed to discuss it, to see it, so you understood the process.
Okay, so we're not voting tonight whether to delay or impose sanctions immediately.
There's no action for you tonight, per se, right? Is that accurate?
No, the question that was presented earlier, at least on behalf of Renaissance, is whether or not you would entertain a stay of the suspension that we now have dates for during the pendency of their appeal. That's the one appeal that we know about. The others are likely to have the same request in the event of appeal, which of course they're not going to let us know until we get our written decisions.
So we have to wait till they come back to us and ask for.
Well, you have the question already from Renaissance.
Renaissance, yeah.
But the others,
So we can hold off on a decision until.
as to the others, I think
So the only one really before you tonight is Renaissance.
So if we say no, but use the analogy of a speeding ticket. If you have a speeding ticket and
Right.
you appeal it, you don't pay the money. You go to the hearings, and if you're found
Right.
guilty, then you pay it later.
Right.
So are you saying that if we say no to the stay of the dates, and then they appeal it, we say it doesn't matter, you still have to close on those days even though you're appealing it?
Yeah,
The appeal's going to happen well after those dates.
right.
Hearings, the actual hearing.
So it's almost like shutting the gate after the horse gets out.
I know it may be counterintuitive to think that this suspension could go in effect even with the appeal, but look at it this way. It's the last standing order that exists in the case as the suspension goes into effect. The appeal does not automatically stay the suspension.
Okay, I see.
In order to get...
Say they win the appeal.
They win
What happens to the lost business that we imposed?
that business is not coming back.
Okay.
Those are days that are lost. The one incentive that a license holder might have to continue to pursue an appeal, even after the suspension is served, is in order to cure the record.
Okay.
So if they win the appeal, there won't be.
They don't have a mark against them.
Right. I mean, if they win the appeal, then the ABCC may get back to you to say, members of the board, we think you were, in error in ordering that result or this result, and it would have the effect of curing the record, if you will. That all-important record that you've all seen of prior offenses becomes pretty important.
Okay. How about a different avenue? If they went to clear the record, or if they were saying our decision was arbitrary and capricious, are there damages due them for the closed business?
No.
It's not. It's
No.
not an avenue.
No.
Okay.
Dave, some guidance on this, boards in similar circumstances.
I've seen it go both ways.
Have you? Okay.
I'm sorry to say that, because I know you were looking for more than that, but it's usually looked at this way. If you decline to issue a stay, we can be fairly well assured that an aggrieved license holder will go to Superior Court and request a temporary restraining order. And temporary restraining orders usually turn on one or two things. One, whether or not there's an irreparable harm. In this case, a loss of a business or property that's not coming back. I think they win on that. The other element in these cases is to determine for the court whether or not there's a good likelihood of success on the merits by the applicant for the TRO. And I suggest to you they lose on that. So of those two elements that are most important in the analysis of whether or not they're going to get a TRO, I think they're good on one and not on the other. And frankly, it depends upon the judge and what that judge's determination or experience might be on whether or not they would issue a TRO. It could go either way.
What harm would it cause if we granted the stay?
Everything would stay the way it is. The suspension days that have been determined here would not go into effect. For those that had made the appeal, let me be clear about that. For those that made the appeal, the suspension would not go into effect as planned, and the appeal would go forward. There would be some determination from the ABCC, and if the ABCC affirms your decision, then those dates could go into effect at some later time. If the ABCC comes back to you with a contrary opinion about the action that you took, then you'd be, free to follow the advice of the ABCC at that time.
Okay.
I'm sure, I think isn't there a question of equity here, though, if you have 6 other people going through and taking their medicine, if you will, absorbing those 3 days, and the one person decides not to, and to appeal it.
Well, I take it a step further, that the one business that said they will appeal is the only business that has not given us dates. So we had to impose dates on our own. The other one stepped up and did it. So I'm comfortable in the process that we did and the reasoning behind it, and the regulations that I say we set it for a reason. And if they appeal, fine, we'll go through that process. But I'm not in favor of a stay.
John?
Actually, I just wondered if we did vote on approving a stay for the Renaissance tonight, would that open the floodgates for others to say, I'm going to appeal and take the stay? Because I think we'd have to be uniform in handling stays for everyone. I just wondered if we'd sort of have a run on the bank with appeals. So I'm with Jim. I'm not in favor of a stay.
Yeah, we debated this. We spent a lot of time discussing this. We have the dates. The dates are the dates. It's time to move forward. So I would say no stay.
Jeannie?
I would agree, no stay.
I'd suggest that there should be a stay. They did say that they had events booked for every single weekend in the near future, and just thinking about the impact on the wedding potentially that might be happening on one of the evenings we picked or whatever. I just think that I would suggest we reconsider and see what the ABCC decides for this type of situation. I understand how the majority of the board came to their conclusion on the penalty, but this is the nature, I think, of this particular business has tremendous impact.
Which, understood, so every single day, every single weekend is booked. It was a little, unusual as we reached out. All the other businesses, I'm sure, had obligations and commitments, and they, you know, they caucused and came back with something that would work for them. And that one particular business has not come back with any dates. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think they've made their decision to appeal, so that's probably part of what went into them not coming up with any dates. But I think, again, the nature of, certainly it impacts the business of a restaurant or theater, but I just feel like here, this is a venue that can be having major functions, significant functions for people that I'm very concerned that we would be putting ourselves in some type of risky position.
Madam Chair, just a suggestion here that I don't know if this is something the board will consider, but is to approach them, and Dave, maybe you approach their counsel and find out if there is a date. Maybe it's not within the 60 days for the weekend, so it doesn't impact a wedding. Yeah, I understand that impact too. That's a pretty significant impact. If you get a booked wedding for that day, that weekend, you can't change that easily.
Have they responded to the dates that we imposed?
I did speak with the attorney, and I told him what the board had done.
Yep.
And, I didn't get any reaction one way or the other. It was just in the context of a conversation, a telephone conversation. I think we had the day following last hearing, so that would have been last Thursday. I let him know that you set those dates, consistent with the same dates, I think, at the Lafayette House. So I let him know.
And he hasn't said, let me check my calendar to see if that's really going to cover our business.
No, because I think, as I said to you earlier, he had made a statement to me that they had events booked for every one of the weekend days or nights within the parameters that you had earlier set.
So I might, because if you note that a couple of them actually chose Thanksgiving and Christmas as dates, because obviously there'll be low business days, generally speaking. But in this particular case, I think they're the only ones that really would typically do a wedding-type business. I think the others are all, I mean, maybe the Lafayette House, maybe. So the question is whether or not they would, in fact, be the only one affected in that way.
See, the unfortunate thing is we're speculating and we're guessing. I mean, the opportunity was to have that discussion at the last meeting or tonight.
Yeah.
And we specifically asked at the last meeting, has anyone heard? And the answer was, yes, we heard through council that they're not interested in giving us dates. So, I would say we move forward. If there's a really big issue and it's a really big hardship, any business can come back to the table and say, can you reconsider?
Sure, good point.
Rather than just chasing our tail on this.
Just say, hey, guys, can you think of this? But there's been none, which is...
We were accommodating enough to let them choose their dates with just the proviso that one date be a Friday or a Saturday. Certainly, they could look at that calendar, and if they could block off something that says, definitely don't book anything, because this is the day we're going to do the suspension.
Or if it was even a week outside the 60-day window, just to kind of to at least make that request.
Right, but just to blow us off and not give us any dates,
Interesting. Okay, so you haven't actually voted.
Does someone want to make a motion for the Renaissance?
Okay, I'll put it in the affirmative. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve a temporary stay until the Renaissance has gone through the appeal process with the ABCC.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? 1, 4, 0. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
thank you, David.
Thanks,
Thank
David.
you. Thank you. Sorry again for being late.
Not your fault.
I don't think it
was
would
a
change
4
anything
zillion
for
other
you
cars
guys
on the road,
anyway.
too.
It's nice to know that we needed you, though.
That's
I feel
right.
like
It's always nice to be wanted,
I'm
isn't it?
very impressed that your law firm had somebody answering the phone.
Oh, yeah. I know.
At 8
Yeah,
PM.
they might
That's
still
right.
be there, actually. I know.
All right.
Thanks again. Now, we got the last two of these hearings coming up in a week or two. I'm disappointed that I can't be here. I just had planned to be away that weekend. Brandon will be here covering. We're going to go through the same process with the hearing. These two are going to be a little bit trickier by way of disposition. And one of the things we talked about was the possibility of taking it all under advisement and then maybe getting what we typically would call some kind of dispositional memorandum from both sides on what you think might be reasonable. And that way you'd give yourself some time to think about it a little bit still. Because that's one possibility. Unless you feel comfortable enough to be able to decide it after hearing the facts.
Okay. It's good to know. Thank you.
Okay. I'll be very, very brief. One thing under my report, I sent everybody an email today just indicating that I've drafted this letter to David Moeller at the state, and I just want to get everybody's reaction. So if you can, just give me your thoughts. I've included everybody's questions at this point, and those that have responded to me, and I've included those in there as well. So we're seeking information, so this is the opportunity to do it. If anybody has any questions beyond that, if I haven't communicated them directly, and I'll respond directly back to you about if I can include it or not. Okay?
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
You too.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thanksgiving.